I think that we can start with not much delay. I would like to welcome you all to this general and introductory training event for Horizon Europe. And today the focus is on Cluster 1, namely health. And we have a very rich program for today. We have 5 sessions. The first session is introduction about the Horizon Europe strategy and work programs. And then we have a more practical or practice-oriented session, which is about the call documents, the proposal templates. Then we have a special session focused on health opportunities, so on Cluster 1, but also some other health-related and health-relevant calls and opportunities. And then we have a session which is dedicated to experiences from a successful organization in health from Turkey. And then we close this event with a roundtable discussion. So I think there will be opportunities for you to provide us with your questions. Please do this. And of course, there is the opportunity to still submit questions during the roundtable discussion. My view is that it's the most important part. It's a pity that this event takes place online, because in a physical setting, in a hotel or in another conference room, we might more interactively raise our hands, interrupt perhaps a presentation, but please do feel comfortable to use this modality of asking questions during the presentations. And also, all participants, we will be happy to receive your questions also afterwards, after the event. In any way, you can contact us through email. Now, I would like to we have 2 participants from TÜBİTAK, and it is Mrs. Şükran Alpdemir and Mrs. Özge Gözey. And I would like to pass the floor to Şükran. Şükran is a bioengineer and is currently working at the National Contact Point for Turkey for Health at TÜBİTAK, along with Özge. And she's also a PhD candidate at the Hacettepe University. So Şükran, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Diamantis. So firstly, I would like to thank everyone for participating in this event, and would like to welcome you all as well. I would also like to thank all the speakers who will be participating in this event, and the whole Turkey and Horizon 2020 project team who co-organized this event for all their efforts. We will have a very compact and detailed event, hopefully. So I will now make a short presentation that gives a very general introduction to the health cluster, as Dr. Martha will be giving a much more detailed presentation on it. I'll also talk shortly about the supportive mechanisms provided by TÜBİTAK for the framework programs. And for the presentation, I will continue in Turkish, if that will also suit everyone else. So that it will be a more introductory kind of presentation in Turkish for those people who would want it. So thanks again, and hoping to have a good and productive event. So I will now carry on by sharing my screen. Sorry to make you wait for a while. Okay.
Yeah, I think now we see your screen.
Okay, great.
So it's excellent. Many thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so I will continue in Turkish now. Öncelikle herkese katılımlarınızdan ve ilginizden dolayı yeniden teşekkür ediyorum. Benim adım Şükran Alpdemir ve Avrupa Birliği Çerçeve Programları Sağlık Alanı için ulusal irtibat noktası olarak görev yapmaktayım. Biraz önce tanıtıldığı üzere. Şimdi öncelikle sağlık kümesi nerede bulunuyor? 3 tane ana bileşen bulunuyor Ufuk Avrupa Programı'nda. Bilimsel mükemmelliyet, küresel sorunlar ve endüstriyel rekabet ve yenilikçi Avrupa bileşeni. Son olarak da yatay bileşen, katılımın yaygınlaştırılması ve ERA'nın güçlendirilmesi bileşeni bulunmakta. Küresel sorunlar ve endüstriyel rekabet bileşeni altında eskiden Ufuk 2020 programında alanlar vardı. Bunlar şimdi kümelere dönüştürüldü ve sağlık kümesi de birinci küme olarak burada yer almaktadır. Ufuk Avrupa katılım kurallarını buna işte sonradan daha fazla bilgi verilecek aslında ama ben çok kısaca hemen bahsetmek istiyorum. En az 3 farklı AB üye ya da asosye üye ülkesinden en az bir ülkenin AB üye ülkesi olması şartıyla sanayi, KOBİ, üniversite, araştırma merkezi, STK vesaire bunlar gibi yani farklı kuruluşların oluşturduğu konsorsiyumlar ile başvuru yapılabilmektedir. Ama Avrupa Araştırma Konseyi, ERC ve Marie Curie alanlarında tek başına araştırmacılar başvuru yapabilmektedir. Avrupa Yenilik Konseyi'nde ise alanında tek başına işletmeler başvuru yapabilmektedirler. Projelerde ne şekilde yer alınabilir? Proje koordinatörü ya da proje ortağı olarak yer alınabilmektedir. Eğer ilk defa başvuru yapıyorsanız proje ortağı olarak yer almanızı tavsiye ederiz. ABD Avrupa Birliği'nde sağlık araştırmalarına biraz gelirsek, sağlık kümesi ile ilgili daha fazla detaylı bilgiye girmeden önce çok kısaca Avrupa Birliği'nde sağlık araştırmalarının durumunu kısaca anlatmak istiyorum. Avrupa Birliği'nde vatandaşların en çok endişe kaynağı sağlık sorunları olduğu gözlemlenmiştir. En çok ölüme neden sağlık sorunları ise kardiyovasküler hastalıklar, kanser ve nörolojik bozukluklar olarak belirlenmiştir. Evet ve ayrıca gittikçe artan yaşlı nüfus ve toplumun daha fazla multimorbid yani çok hastalıklı olduğundan dolayı da bu alanlara da özellikle öncelik verilmektedir. Ayrıca bir de anahtar alanlar belirlenmiştir Avrupa Komisyonu tarafından. Bunlar kişiselleştirilmiş tıp, antimikrobiyal direnç, nadir hastalıklar ve çevresel riskler olarak belirlenmiştir. Bu alanlarda da eranetler veya işte bunlarla ilgili çağrılar açılması planlanmaktadır. Şimdi sağlık kümesine gelirsek eğer, alanın genel amacı yaşam boyu sağlığın korunarak sağlıklı toplumların, sağlıklı iş gücünün ve sağlık sistemlerinin desteklenmesidir. Yeni çalışma programında 6 tane destinations veya hedefler belirlenmiştir. Bunlar sağlığın korunması, sağlıklı çalışma ve yaşam ortamları, hastalıklarla mücadele, yenilikçi sürdürülebilir sağlık sistemleri, sağlık için dijital çözüm ve teknolojiler, son olarak da yenilikçi sağlık endüstrisi. Bu destinations'lar altında da çağrılar açılmaktadır. Toplam bütçesi 7,7 milyar avro olarak belirlenmiştir. Çağrı takvimi de 2021-2022 çağrı programı aslında şu an yayınlanmış bulunuyor. Ve çoğu çağrılarda 21 Eylül 2021 tarihinde de bitecektir başvuru tarihi. 2021 bütçesi ise 948 milyon avro olarak belirlenmiştir toplam bütçe olarak. Peki asosye ülkelerin çağrılara katılımı şu an ne durumda? Bu çalışma programlarının yayınlandığı tarih itibariyle şu anda da bu mevcut. Hiçbir asosye ülke Ufuk Avrupa programında bulunmuyor. Bundan dolayı da LGBT yani başvuru koşulları açısından tüm başvuru yapacak olan asosye ülkelerden olan Ufuk 2020 programında asosye ülke konumunda olan kuruluş ve konumunda olan ülkelerde bulunan kurum ve kuruluşlar yine Ufuk Avrupa programı içinde bu konumda kabul edilecektir. Yani başvuru yapabileceksiniz. Şimdi başarılı hikayelere gelirsek eğer, Well-Based projesi bulunuyor. Bununla ilgili hatta Demir Enerji'den de Baha Bey'di galiba. Baha Bey bulunuyor. O da daha fazla bilgi verecektir. Ben de çok kısaca bir bilgi vermek istiyorum. Well-based sosyoekolojik model ve gerçekçi değerlendirme yaklaşımına dayalı olarak hem farklı kentsel gerçeklikleri hem de çeşitli refah ve sağlık modellerini temsil ederek 7 farklı pilot şehirde enerjinin kaynaklarının yetersizliğini ve bunların vatandaşların sağlığı ve refahı üzerindeki etkilerini azaltmak için kanıta dayalı yaklaşımlar üzerine kurulu kapsamlı bir kentsel program tasarlamayı, uygulamayı ve değerlendirmeyi amaçlamaktadır. 10 ülkeden 19 ortak bulunuyor bu proje kapsamında. Ve proje başlangıç tarihi Mart 2021 tarihi olarak gerçekleştirmiştir. Şubat 2025 tarihinde de bitirilmesi düşünülüyordur. Ve burada gerçekten 3 tane Türkiye'den paydaş bulunuyor. Demir Enerji, Türkiye Cumhuriyeti, Edirne Belediyesi ve Zero Discrimination Association dediğimiz bir Avrupa Komisyonu tarafından yine desteklenen bir kuruluş. Ve gerçekten çok güzel bir proje ve çok da şimdiden de tebrik ediyorum. Proje yürütücüsü ise İspanya'dan bir koordinatör. Biraz ismi uzun olduğu için şu an burada bunu söylemeyeceğim ama toplam bütçesi 5,1 milyon avro ve Ufuk 2020 programı kapsamında desteklenmiştir. İkinci bir başarı hikayesi ise tip 2 diyabet hastalarına yönelik bit bazlı öz yönetim ve destek sistemlerinin kamu tedariği. Bu projenin amacı ise Pro Empower projesi aslında kısaltılmışı. Tip 2 diyabet hastalarının kendi hastalık yönetim süreçlerine daha fazla dahil olabilecekleri ve sağlık uzmanları tarafından uzaktan takip edilmelerini sağlayacak yazılım geliştirmektir. Bu proje şu an yeni bitti sayılır. Ekim 2016 tarihinde başlamıştı. Mart 2020 tarihinde de tamamlandı. Burada hem paydaş hem de yürütücü Türkiye Cumhuriyeti Sağlık Bakanlığı. Yani kamu kurumu da aslında kamu kurumları da buna üniversiteler dahil de olmak üzere başvuru yapabiliyorlar tabii ki de. Ve bütçesi de 4,2 milyon avroluk bir bütçesi olmuş ve yine Ufuk 2020 programı altında desteklenmiştir. Bir de bir farklılık olarak daha Ufuk Avrupa programında misyonlar geliştirilmiştir. Kanser misyonu da sağlık alanı ilgili bir misyondur. Bununla ilgili daha ileriki zamanlarda Doktor Mars'la daha fazla bir bilgi verecek zaten. Peki kanser misyonun amacı ne? Avrupa Birliği'nde 3,5 milyon kanser hastası 2035 yılında 4,3 milyona çıkacağı öngörülmektedir. Bunu aslında önlemeyi hedefliyor kanser misyonu ve kanser misyonu kapsamında da 5 müdahale alanı ve 13 aksiyon belirlenmiştir. Bu aksiyonlar kapsamında da çağrılar açılacaktır. Hatta şu an bir çağrı programı da yayınlanmış durumdadır. Bir tane çağrı açıktır şu an 2021 tarihi için. Ona da isterseniz sizinle de bu çağrı programını da paylaşabiliriz. Bir de Transkan 3 diye bir translasyonel kanser araştırmaları RNAT Co-Fund projesi bulunuyor. Transkan 3 Avrupa ülkeleri arasında kanser konusunda güçlü araştırma ve geliştirme ortaklarının kurulması amacıyla Avrupa Birliği Komisyonu tarafından Ufuk 2020 kapsamında desteklenen bir RNAT Co-Fund projesidir. Transkan 3 projesinde TÜBİTAK ile birlikte 32 kuruluş yer almaktadır ve şu an açık olan yeni nesil kanser immünoterapileri tümör mikroçevresi başlığında bir çağrı bulunmaktadır. Ve TÜBİTAK 1071 kapsamında desteklenmektedir. Türkiye'den gelen başvurular şu an açık ama bir gün sonra yani yarın kapanıyor aslında pre-proposal'ların teslim edilme tarihleri. Ama önümüzdeki süreçlerde de yeni çağrılar açılması planlanmaktadır. Onları da takip etmenizi tavsiye ederiz. Sağlık ortaklarına gelirsek 2021 yılında Innovative Health Initiatives denilen İHİ yani bu aslında Ufuk 2020 programı süresince İMI olarak bir girişim vardı. Innovative Medicine Initiative. Bunun devamı, bununla da ilgili daha fazla bilgi yine verilecektir. İkinci bir ortaklık ise Avrupa-Afrika Global Sağlık Ortaklığı'dır. Bu da 2021 yılında açılmış olacak ve son olarak da Partnership on Assessment of Risk of Chemicals yani PARC, bu da kimyasalların risklerini asses yapmak için bir ortaklıktır. Ve aynı zamanda da 2021 yılında Pandemic Preparedness Partnership'te açılması planlanmaktadır. Alandaki değişimlere gelirsek, cinsiyet eşitliği boyutu daha fazla güçlendirilmiştir. Araştırma etiği boyutu daha fazla güçlendirilmiştir. Açık bilime daha fazla önem verilmiştir. Sosyal ve beşeri bilim kapsamı daha fazla genişletilmiştir. daha geniş kapsamlı çıktı odaklı çağrılar artık bulunacaktır. Çıktıya ulaşmak için ikna edici yöntemler geliştirilmesi beklenmektedir projelerde. Aynı zamanda da çağrılar birbirini tamamlayan çağrılar olarak gerçekleşecektir. Peki şimdi şeyden bahsedersek, Ufuk 2020 ve sonrasında ekosistemimizin başarılarını nasıl teşvik ediyoruz? TÜBİTAK bazı destekler sağlayarak aslında bu başvuru sürecini ve diğer mesela ağ kurma sürecini kolaylaştırmayı hedeflemektedir. Mesela koordinatörlüğü destekleme programımız bulunuyor. Konsorsiyum kurma amaçlı seyahat ve organizasyon, proje yazma, sunma eğitimi, proje yazdırma ve proje ön değerlendirme destekleri bu program kapsamında verilmektedir. Seyahat desteği programı ise proje yürütücüsü adayların proje pazarları, bilgi günleri, konsorsiyum toplantıları ve diğer uygun toplantı ve etkinliklere katılım sağlanmaları için destek verilmektedir. Şu an tabii COVID-19'dan dolayı bu destek çok verilmiyor ama önümüzdeki umuyoruz ki tabii COVID-19 bitince yeniden bu programda açılacaktır ve bu programın şöyle iyi bir yanı var. Genellikle %100 destek sağlanıyor tüm seyahat masrafları için. Yabancı araştırma seyahat desteği diye bir programda bulunuyor. Bu da koordinatörlük veya ERC baş araştırmacı, panelist deneyimi olan yabancı araştırmacıların Türkiye'de yerleşik kuruluşları ziyaret etmeleri için destek sağlanması hedeflenmektedir. Ağlara üyelik desteği bir de bulunuyor. Bunda da proje önerilerine dahil olunması ve önceliklerin belirlenmesinde etkili olan ağlara üyeliğin teşvik edilmesi hedeflenmektedir. Son olarak da Mary Skłodowski-Curie proje ön değerlendirme desteği ve ERC baş araştırmacı geliştirme programı desteklerimizde bulunmaktadır. Bu desteklerle ilgili daha fazla bilgi almak isterseniz eğer bizim destek ekibimizle görüşmenizi, iletişime geçmenizi tavsiye ederiz. Bizim bir de böyle bir Ufuk 2020 web sitemiz bulunuyor. İhtiyaç duyulan her şeyi bu linklerden bulabilirsiniz. Buradaki Ufuk 2020 destekleri tıklarsanız eğer buradaki tematik alanları bulabilirsiniz. Buradan sağlık alanını mesela bulabilirsiniz. Aynı zamanda haberlere ulaşabilirsiniz ve başarı hikayelerine ulaşabilirsiniz. Bir de burada üye olursanız eğer newsletter'a da üye olursanız tüm haberler size kişisel mailinize gelebilecektir. O yüzden üye olmanızı da tavsiye ediyoruz Ufuk 2020 web sitemize. Sosyal medya hesaplarımız da bulunuyor. TÜBİTAK Ufuk Avrupa Programı Twitter hesabımız bulunuyor. Buradan da LinkedIn hesabımız bulunuyor. Buradan da gelişmeleri, haberleri takip edebilirsiniz. Aynı zamanda Twitter hesabımız da bulunuyor. Bir de TÜBİTAK'ın başka bir projede yer aldığı bir şey var. Bu da İPA 2 kapsamında aslında birçok şey desteklenmiştir, etkinlik desteklenmiştir. Bu da bu Turkey in Horizon 2020 Phase 2 kapsamında desteklenen projedir. Ve ne gibi faaliyetler destekleniyor? Eğitim faaliyetlerinin yürütülmesi, sonra danışmanlık ve proje değerlendirme hizmetleri desteklenmektedir. İşbirliği ağlarının geliştirilmesi desteklenmektedir. Ve son olarak da ekosistemimizin yeni başarılara imza atması bu yöntemle desteklenmektedir. Ve şimdi de aslında İPA 3 projesinde girilecektir Ufuk Avrupa programı içinde. Bu da 2021 yılı itibariyle başlanması planlanmaktadır. 2021-2022 yılları arasında bir programlama çalışmaları da devam etmektedir. Bir de uluslararası proje pazarı etkinlikleri ve uluslararası çalışma ziyaretleri de gerçekleştiriyoruz. Bu uluslararası proje pazarı etkinlikleri nedir? Ufuk 2020 programına katılımı arttırmak için projeler özelinde işbirliklerini teşvik eden ikili görüşmelerin ve sunumların gerçekleştirildiği etkinliklerdi aslında. Şimdi bunlar da Ufuk Avrupa programı içinde devam edecek. Ayrıca bir de uluslararası çalışma ziyaretleri yapılmıştır Ufuk 2020 programı kapsamında. Bunda da başarılı olan kuruluşlara en iyi uygulama örneklerini paylaşmak, işbirliklerini arttırmak amacıyla yapılan ziyaretlerdir. Ufuk Avrupa programında da bunlar devam edilmesi planlanmaktadır. Bazı örnekler 2019 yılında mesela IC Turkey etkinliği düzenlenmişti. Çok büyük çaplı bir etkinlikti. İstanbul'da gerçekleşti. Bir de uluslararası çalışma ziyareti örneği de Almanya'da bir çalışma ziyareti gerçekleşmişti. Burada Fraunhofer gibi büyük kuruluşlar da katılım sağlamıştı. Bir de çok kısaca hemen Ufuk Avrupa Bilgi Günlerinden bahsetmek istiyorum. Aslında Haziran 28'inden Temmuz'un 9'una kadar devam etmesi planlanan Ufuk Avrupa Programı için Avrupa Komisyonu tarafından bu bilgi günleri düzenlenecektir. Sağlık alanı içinde 2 Temmuz 2021 tarihinde bilgi günü düzenlenecektir. 5 Temmuz 2021 tarihi için ise proje pazarı etkinliği düzenlenecektir Avrupa Komisyonu tarafından. Bunları da katılmanızı ve register yapmanızı tavsiye ederiz. Beni dinlediğiniz için teşekkür ederim. Bize her zaman ncphealth@tübitak.gov.tr adresinden ulaşabilirsiniz. Çok verimli ve güzel bir etkinlik olacağına inanıyorum. Herkese şimdiden güzel bir etkinlik geçirmeleri için dileklerimi sunuyorum. So thank you. I think we can carry on.
So thank you, Sukran. And I saw you also triggered people to ask some questions, and I see there is one question by Ayşegül, and actually it has two components. The first is in the field of health. So now I'm reading to all of us her question. In the field of health, is the project requires countries from 3 different countries in the application? Can 3 different institutions from Turkey can apply for the program? Can you share a platform link? So about the eligibility, it is exactly as you mentioned, which means that it's not a good idea to have 3 institutions from Turkey applying. So you will need to have eligible partners at least from another 2 countries. Otherwise, there is no limit there that one can have 3 different institutions from Turkey organized, and especially if these come from different fields, so one from industry, one from research or academia, even better. But you still need to have partners from other countries. This is the first part. The second is, can you share a platform link where we can submit a request to participate in projects as a stakeholder in case of a partnership with EU associated or EU countries? What I understand there from your question is whether there is some, so to say, marketplace for expressing your interests. And on this, I will share my screen to show you something that is a modality that is used. So for each, so I took this as an example, okay? But here, this is the official page in the web of the funding and tender opportunities. And this is about a specific call. So it's about data-driven decision support tools for better healthcare delivery and policymaking. And on this page, where you can find information about the deadlines and about everything else related to the topic and the outcomes and all these, there is one button there that you can click on it and get information about organizations, universities, companies that are looking for collaborating partners for this topic. And so here you can see there several companies. So it's a company from Greece, it's a university from Finland, that they present themselves and also what exactly they are interested about. Now, in this respect, you can get in contact to them, but personally, and this is actually the nature of this event as a training event today, is that we would like to provide you with some information. about good practices or less good practices. It's not unusual that in many cases people receive emails that are very generic, and instead of presenting how an organization is relevant to a specific topic of a call, it seems like it is an excerpt from a very generic mass marketing email that one person sends massively to many people out there. This is not a good style of conducting some people. So imagine that many of them may receive similar emails from many people, and they will carry out some filtering, which means that the more focused and specialized you can make your expression of interest to a specific call, the higher the chances of success. On the other hand, another practical issue is that in many cases, when you would conduct an existing project so that you might see there if they might be interested to collaborate with you, instead of doing this centrally from the Cordis website, where actually lots of people, actually it will be all the legal representatives of each consortium member will receive such an email. It's better if you spend a little time and see there who is the coordinator of the project or who might be a relevant work package responsible, so that you get in contact with them personally. And sometimes if this information is missing from a project website, you can find this in some publication. So usually within a project, the project teams publish some papers in journals, in conferences. So if you are missing an email of a possible relevant person to get in contact with, you can find it from some other sources. So using Cordis to centrally send emails to all legal representatives, and then in some cases for universities, it might be totally irrelevant, the people who will receive this email from the people who have been working in the project. So there are some small things there that you can improve the efficacy of your emails. Sukran, I don't know what you would like to add there, if you have some experiences there about how to improve, let's say, the efficacy of some communications that interested parties might carry out to manage and get involved in some other people's proposals.
Yeah, it's actually all I want to say about it as well. It's it's a really good answer. And I just also wanted to add, if you do have a particular call topic that you are interested in, you can always fill out this expression of interest form that you can ask from us NCPs, and we can also share it in our NCP network, so that other country NCPs can also share it with their network, and maybe that kind of that will allow some other legal entities, some other researcher to be able to find a partner from you. And also, I would also like to add about this partner search. I would really recommend you to attend these brokerage events that are being right now. There's one that is going to happen on the 5th of July. And it's really good to meet new people from all over Europe, from associated countries, from even countries like the United States. And it's really good. Yeah, that's the website. Thank you, Dr. Martha. And so yeah, you should definitely apply for that event.
Okay, so then we can proceed with the next presentation, and actually it is a presentation that Odysseas Spiroglou was supposed to carry out, but Odysseas was disabled to be with us today in the event, so he kindly asked me to present it on his behalf. And this first presentation is something like a view from above, so it's about a bird's eye view on the calls. So it's not necessarily as practice oriented as the next ones, but it's still useful. And at some point I was trying to find an analogy with you that you might be, most of you, familiar with. And I found there that same like in Europe, we have the framework programs. For Turkey, you have the development plans. Now it's the 11th development plan that is running and it's active. And there are several components of these plan. There is about industrial policies. There are priority sectors. There are policy development areas, and one might consider that, okay, if there is a specific call that I can submit an application for funding, why should I necessarily care about high-level documents? But it is still very relevant and important, because imagine that your proposals, which might be very well focused and specialized in some area, if your proposals will be informed about the overall context, in Europe, it might be the Horizon Europe program, but for Turkey, it might be the 11th development plan, you could provide a better grounding of your proposal, and you could also provide some better, more convincing, more successful arguments why your proposal should be financed against some other competing proposals, which means that this high-level information is always useful. On the other hand, someone might understand that, okay, this is rather too generic or too vague, but it's not necessarily. So now it's about the first of all, till before some days, we had the leaked work programs. So now they are official, and we can present them, and they are official. And it is, first of all, about explaining how EU policies are so important and relevant also. And the idea here is that we can start seeing the EU priorities and how these are translated into work programs, how strategic plans, which are for 4 years, are also reflected in work programs that are only biannually, and how some key strategic orientations and some new approaches for impact still are very relevant and important for you to know how you can use them and present them in your proposals, even though this might seem like not very relevant. It is very relevant. It is what could provide you with some higher scores in the evaluation than some other proposals, which might be very technically very sound, but might lack information on the overall surrounding political environment. First of all, to understand about EU funding, it's vital to see how EU works. And the idea is that the Union is a political union between 27 countries. And though it began as a purely economic union, it's more and more that now we try to see how we can develop jointly together some policies, be them for climate change, for environment, or for health. And this might affect many other areas like security, migration, and many other thematic areas. Now, the idea is that we should see there that there is a basis of common goals and values that all these are based upon. So this is like the constitution of a nation. So in this case, it is the EU goals and values, which means that it's good if even a very technical proposal that might be applied in some very specific area should show that you are aware, the consortium is aware about all these goals and values, and that you are compliant with them. Now, to achieve all its goals, the idea is that EU has created detailed strategies and specific instruments, and the EU strategies are described in EU policies and in a number of key areas that range from the single market to customs, employment, transport, energy, education, health. But actually, a policy is nothing more than words if it is not implemented. So about the implementation, we have legislation in terms of regulations, directives, decisions, recommendations, EU standards, and we have also the funding programs. Now, the thing is that about funding programs, we can get as an example Horizon Europe, and once the legal framework of the program is agreed by the European Commission, the Parliament, the Council, and the Member States, then the European Commission and its agencies are responsible to move on and prepare the strategic plan for the first half period of the project. So in our case, it is 21 till 24. And based on this strategic plan, there will be the multi-annual work programs that will be prepared, and initially they cover a period of each year. So it's therefore that today we will present calls, specific calls that are planned for 2021 and 2022. And the idea there is to prioritize the thematic areas and describe the specific actions for the forthcoming 2 years. Now, following the work program, the calls for proposals are announced and published, which is now what is actually attracting all our attention. Now, about Commission priorities. You may all be aware of them, so that they are announced usually in the change of leadership. So all these Commission priorities are of the Commission of President von der Leyen, and it's about the European Green Deal, Europe fit for digital age, economy that works for people, stronger Europe in the world, promoting European way of life, new push for European democracy. So again, this might seem like very high level, and they might seem like coming out from thin air, but this is not the case. They are product of long-term deliberations, dialogue, discussions, agreements within all EU institutions. Again, someone might think that, okay, should I be necessarily informed about all this? Okay, you can always take the risk and ignore them. But as I said before, it really makes a difference if a very technologically and technically and scientifically sound proposal takes into account all these policy issues when the people are writing this proposal. So it really grounds your proposal and increases your chances very well. So it's something that, at least from my side, I would suggest that it's all worth to do, and I have some specific recommendations on how to do this, especially the part of the proposal that is affected is the impact part, but not only the impact, but mainly it is the impact. So now about Horizon priorities for 2021 to 2024. The priorities lead to the creation of certain policies, and the term of the other new to Horizon Europe is the concept of key strategic orientations. And key strategic orientations are linked to specific expected impacts, which means that imagine now that in order to have your proposals being better related to specific destinations of the core topics that you will be addressing, you have to be convincing about the expected impacts, which means that the more you are informed about the key strategic orientations and impact areas that stem from the strategic plan and the EU policy priorities, the better will be your expected impacts. So it seems like a vicious cycle, but it's not. It's only that instead of focusing here, many of us, it's not uncommon that many of us write proposals or are involved in proposals, and our own assumption is the work program, or even not the entire work program. It's only the specific call, the 2 or 3 pages of a specific call topic we are about to address. But the more someone has a bigger picture into their mind and take this picture into account, the higher the chances of success. So now the idea, as said before, is that to achieve these impacts, Horizon Europe creates a work program every 2 years. So now we will have to deal with a work program for 2021-22. And in Horizon Europe, these calls are organized under destinations that are linked to impacts. And the idea of destinations is also new, and it is now new for Horizon Europe. So this is the structure of Horizon Europe, and it might seem very common or close to the structure we had for Horizon 2020. So Pillar 1 is almost the same. Pillar 2 used to be industrial leadership, and it also included key technologies, private investments, and the measures for SMEs, while Pillar 3 was the societal challenges, and it included thematic fields for health, food, transport, security. So here you can see a comparison between how Horizon 2020 was structured and how Horizon Europe is. For instance, an innovation is that now future and emerging technologies is now part of the European Innovation Council, and it is addressed through the Pathfinder program. But all in all, people who felt familiar or comfortable with Horizon 2020, they will again feel comfortable with a few changes that are now taking place in Horizon Europe. So it's nothing there. A restructure is only to better align objectives. So it's nothing there that is game changing. What is, on the other hand, game changing is this co-design and participatory approach that the Commission takes now more and more into account. And what does co-design mean? And actually, it's an approach to actively involve different stakeholders in the design process to help ensure results meet needs and are usable, are of high value to the society and to everyone who might be worth to be addressed as a stakeholder. And why is it important? The idea is that this, same like many other methodologies like the mixed research methods, design thinking, and agile methodologies, are actually aiming to increase the engagement of users, of what it's called also needs owners. So the people, the organizations who have specific needs and which needs we aim to fulfill through specific measures like the research and innovation actions. So this is something that I would, especially for this term of concept of co-design, to ask you to try and spend some more time on it, because it's not like a sentence or a term without meaning. No, it has lots, it makes lots of sense, and it's all worth that in your processes of designing your projects, you will try to include this co-design aspect or co-creation, if you like, value co-creation aspect into your processes, both in terms of the proposal preparation, but also later when you will be executing your projects. So this is also relevant because actually this co-design for the strategic plan started with Horizon 2020, so at the time of the midterm review. And the idea was there that with feedback, some piloting of new approaches like what we now experience with the European Innovation Council took place. And as you see, there were many participants who provided responses, and there were physical and online events and consultations that took place. So this is actually something that also projects should take into account to include when they will acquire requirements or when they will communicate the results to potential end users or an audience. So this is very important. Now, there are lots of interconnection between key strategic orientations and the common goals that each of these orientation serves. So for instance, one may see there that for digital and green transitions, orientation A and D are very relevant. Climate and environmental protection is applicable to all orientation. Inequalities and health is only to D. So this is again a very important aspect that you would study when preparing a proposal. I know it might seem like not some type of actionable information, same like when we use the proposal templates, but it's nothing there that you should ignore, because you would risk there that all the work and the efforts that you will have invested on technical parts will not be given as much importance if these fundamentals will not have been paid attention and considerable attention before. So about orientation A, the idea is that each orientation is targeted towards specific impact areas and is linked with the clusters. So for orientation A, you see that it's relevant to health, culture, security, digital, and climate. And orientation B is also relevant, especially for the event today about health. Same also orientation C, and same also orientation D. So health, there is a ubiquity, let's say, of the relevance of health in terms of orientations, which means that to study orientations and see how you can strengthen your proposal by providing a good narrative for this is something that should take place by consortia. And there are also some new approaches for impact. And first of all, it is the idea of European partnerships. And these are initiatives of European Union between private and public entity for joint undertaking of research and innovation activities. And we have partnerships for AI, data and robotics, for other areas like Water for All, European Open Science Cloud, for batteries. And we have a new concept, which is the idea of missions. On this, Martha will also present a relevant mission there, but the idea here is to address global challenges that are ambitious, inspirational, and have also some achievable goals that will be targets and aims to be achieved and accomplished within the lifetime of a mission. And now about the international cooperation, this is upgraded in Horizon Europe, which means that there are more opportunities for international cooperation in Horizon Europe than we had in Horizon 2020, which is a good thing, because in the past we had special difficulties to include partners from Japan or Korea. Apart, there were some specific calls, joint calls. Now it's much easier to include in our research actions partners from other countries, from third-party countries and regions. So now some cross-cutting key issues, and these are about gender, ethics, and about open science. The first is gender equality and inclusiveness. So we may have been familiar with the idea of providing some texts about gender dimensions in our proposals. Now this is much more important. So it is something that the integration of the gender dimension in our applications is much more important than only providing some text that we may have selected or copied and pasted from some past proposals. And it's part of the European Commission's gender equality strategy, which means that it would need that not the entire consortium, but some few people, not necessarily only one person, would spend some time on addressing gender equality and inclusiveness issues to your proposals. Of course, there is always a possibility that we may have a proposal that might be gender agnostic. I'm not sure if there might be any proposals that might be gender agnostic, but in that case, you would still need to ground sufficiently and convincingly that this is a case of a gender agnostic proposal, which means that, again, you will need to study and spend some time on studying the gender dimension. Now, about ethics and integrity, actually, it's a prerequisite for research excellence and a critical factor in achieving socially relevant impact. And all projects funded by Horizon Europe have to respect the European Code of Conduct for Research Integrity, adhere to the ethics and principles and legislation. So this is something that, again, it's not something that you might say that, okay, we will deal with this in a later stage. And this is actually something that in the next presentation about the templates, the proposal templates, it will be mentioned again, but it's not something that you can ignore, or it's not something that it would be wise from your side to rely that, okay, we will write something very generic and or copy paste from a successful proposal in the past. No, it has to be tailor-made, custom designed for the particular research or innovation action you are preparing to submit. And in general, the idea also of developing dedicated training and education material or other operational procedures that relate with ethics is also very important. And I think that I have no better argument to convince you, but imagine, we all know, we are all aware how fierce is the competition. Okay, so imagine now that you may have spent considerable efforts for a proposal that has got a score of 4 for impact, which is a very good score. On the other hand, it will not allow your proposal to be financed, which means that if this extra time that you could invest on such cross-cutting key specific issues like ethics or gender or open science that I will refer next is all worth, because they might provide you with the highest score, so even a 5. And it's not uncommon that in many cases, proposals that got a 14.5 are not funded. And there are still cases with proposals that got 15, so out of 15, and still didn't get funded. So about open science, first of all, it's becoming more and more a modus operandi for carrying out research and innovation by means of sharing knowledge, data, and tools as early as possible, which means that in this respect, it's not only what we may have in the past promised in our proposals that we will have some publications which will be open access. No, the idea now of open science is that it may start from a very early on point in the design of our research actions, and it might involve several aspects like co-creation or co-design, so that the openness or the open science approach will reflect all aspects and tasks within our project. And there, okay, the idea is that there are lighthouse projects which you can take into account, or even you can get in contact with them, which means that it's not necessarily something that one needs to spend a few hours and write a text that will not be related to several parts of the implementation plan of the project. What I mean now, I'm referring to the templates. There is a request that Consortium will provide some information about how they are related with open science concepts. Now, it's not only about providing these half a page or 1 page of information. It's also to show there that in all parts of your objectives, ambitions, tasks, deliverables, dissemination, exploitation, communication measures, all these are reflecting open science approaches and processes. So it's something that needs more study, and it's not something that you should only care about providing 1 or half a page and that's all. So this is actually the structure of the work program as we are used to have it, which means that there are some parts like the general introduction and then each of the specific programs. So you see now clusters 1 to 6, like cluster 1 is health, is part of section 4 of the Horizon Europe program. And the most relevant or for you documents to study are the strategic plan 21 to 24, the work program 21 to 22, the proposal template that we will now speak about immediately after, and the model grant agreement. But especially the 3 first, the strategic plan, the work program, and the proposal templates are the most important and the most relevant for you. So now, what does this mean in few words? one needs to study the policies in terms of studying the strategic plan and the analysis, and also the general introduction of the work program for the 2 first years. And then you have to scan the work program to find the relevant call that matches or relates to your interests, and then study carefully the call text and the general annex of the work program. And then you can start building your proposal. Now, what I know from my own experiences and interactions with people is that usually people start from this step here. So they start building without necessarily having studied even the call, or they may have studied only a specific call, ignoring the bigger picture. And now the aim of this first presentation was to make you aware of how important it is to study the policies. And I know it might be something that might not be very exciting, because the policies are general and this is actually their aim. But on the other hand, if you will not be able to successfully position your specific proposal into the context of a call that reflects specific policies, you might risk to get a lower score, and then all your efforts will be in vain because you will not get funded. On the other hand, the investment that you will make to study policies is something that in the long run pays off. So it's exactly same like my analogy before with the development plan, the national development plan for Turkey. So being able to, or feeling familiar with the concept, the approach, the rationale of the development plan may provide you an advantage when you will be preparing an application for national funding. And the other thing is that studying the policies is something that pays off, because whatever other proposals you will come up with in the next years, the policies will still stay the same, at least for 4 years, as it is the case of a strategic plan. So I'm done with my first presentation. I see there are no questions for the time. I don't know if I should be worried that you don't have any questions. In case I have made you feel a little afraid about the efforts there for studying the policies, please believe me that this was also my intention. And I say this, of course, as a joke, but I mean it seriously, in which respect that, as I said before, the cost of preparing competitive proposals is not low. And it's good if you will diversify your efforts and pay attention also for parts that might not be very relevant to your research agendas, but they might help you acquire funding for meeting your research agendas. So I will now proceed to my next presentation. Kemal, I think that we are okay in terms of time, yeah? So I will again share my screen with you. This is an introduction about the 3 very important sections of the proposal template. And what I will do is that I will make also some comparisons between the old and the new templates. First of all, the context setting. Templates are important, so they are not only a technicality. And there is the principle of form following function. And some trade-offs here are if a template is too much scientific, or if it's too much industry-oriented, or if it looks or seems like a sales pitch. Actually, there is a compromise of all three of them. And the idea is that each of those aspects needs to be there in our proposals. And why are templates important? Because with a bad template, several hundreds or thousands of people all over Europe, we will suffer. While with a good template, we will be able to write better proposals and also build better learning curves. What I mean here is that it's normal that in the beginning of Horizon Europe, we may not feel very comfortable with the new proposal templates, but there should be a learning curve so that gradually, as time goes by, we will write better proposals because we will feel more comfortable with the proposal template. But it's good if we don't have these taking place in 1 or 2 years, but if we will be able to understand the logic of the new templates and be able to submit, even from the first calls, good proposals that actually exploit the new template qualities. Now, some deficiencies of the old templates, I think all of us aware of them. And you remember we had to present the objectives of our projects. And then after certain amount of pages, we needed to present the overall concept of our project, which means that at some point we were enforced to provide a short description and a short presentation of the concept of the project before the objectives. And then we had again to present the concept later on in section 1.3. And then we had also to present the methodology and the ambition and how our objectives that were presented in section 1.1 aim to go beyond the state of the art. So it was not very practical the way that the old template for section 1 was structured. So the comparison in general of the old and new template is that the old was having 70 pages, while now we have only 45 pages, but a smaller number of pages doesn't necessarily mean that it's easier. Sometimes it's easier to present something in 10 pages than in 4. Section 1 excellence included in the past consisted of 4 subsections. Now it's about 2 subsections, but as we will see later, actually organically several parts have been now included in the first section. Section 2 is one that actually has the same structure, apart from an innovation or a novelty, which is that we now have also a new section, section 2.3, that is the impact canvas, for which I will elaborate immediately after. And the old section 3, it included 4 sections. Now it's only 2 sections. But actually, what I think is the biggest innovation here is that we don't anymore need to provide information about management structure and decision making, which was something that we all consortia were copying and pasting this part from some other proposals, which was okay. But in many cases, we also failed to change the acronym. So we may have been still using some proposal acronym from another project, or it was also a source of mistakes because, for instance, in the management and decision making, we may have included some boards like industry boards or special interest groups or ethics boards, which were not part of our project management work packages, which means that it was something that I think we all feel relieved that this is not anymore a mandatory part for our proposals. Now, impact canvas, actually, as I mentioned before, is perhaps the most new, innovative, or if you like, game-changing aspect of the new templates. And about some prehistory is that actually with the business model canvas of Alexander Osterwalder, the idea of providing information in such a structured form became more and more popular. And this is also the case why the Horizon Results Booster currently uses 2 other canvas templates, the lean canvas and the value proposition canvas. So you see, this is the lean canvas, and this is a simplification of the business model canvas. And also this is the value proposition canvas. So the idea is that one should present all information as parts of these components. Now, the Horizon Europe Impact Canvas, we should be cautious because it is meant to be a summary. And it consists of 6 parts: the needs for the project, the results that your project brings, the dissemination, exploitation and communication measures, the target groups of your project, the outcomes, and the impacts. Now, this is how an example that is included in the proposal templates looks like. And you see there are some examples also here, how would or should some need look like, or some results. And I'm fully aware that we face sometimes the problem to distinguish between results and outcomes. There is plenty of information in the templates, but also here, also from the examples, you can see there what might be the difference between outcomes and results. How should target groups be named? What might be potential or possible impacts? Now, as I mentioned before, the impact summary includes these 6 components. And at some point, you need to describe all of them. So it might be up to you if you start from the needs and then go to results, impacts, outcomes, or someone else might start from the outcomes and describe then the results, the impacts, the needs, the groups, and the dissemination exploitation measures, or someone else might start from the results. So you have all the freedom to start from that component that makes you feel more comfortable, and then go and elaborate each of the other ones. And of course, you can still revisit the results, which means that once we start from results and then we define the impacts and the needs and the target groups and outcomes, we may still feel there that there is something wrong with how we defined results in the beginning, or that our results were a little vague, or that they were more like outcomes and not like results. So there is a very good advice to all of us that the impact canvas, it's not as easy as it seems. So, and this is actually something that I think it's a little unfair with the idea of the canvas in general, but also the impact canvas here, because it looks much easier. So all of us intuitively, we think that, okay, it's such a nice structure, we can write there very convincing arguments and provide some very coherent and good-looking information. It's not the case. And it needs hands-on practice. And okay, we all know what they say about practice making the master. And ideal is to be composed with interaction amongst partners. So it's not actually like a solitary activity. I would suggest that it's better if you organize meetings, be them face-to-face meetings, co-located meetings, or over Zoom with all your partners. You can create a Google Doc with all 6 parts of the canvas, and then try interactively discuss and fill out something like trial and error. It needs time. It's not wise to leave it for the last moment. And it might also need several iterations. And what I will also suggest later when I will be presenting the impact section is that, and some processes that I would suggest for you to follow, is that it's ideal if you start your proposal from this section. So the first thing to do will be to fill out the impact summary of your future proposal. So, some conclusions. The new proposal template, as all the others, of course, has to be lived in by your team. And okay, there is this 10,000 hours rule from Malcolm Gladwell, but I think that no one would like to spend 10,000 hours for a proposal, but at least here it needs some good investment of your time there. less pages does not necessarily mean less effort. And as I said, the impact canvas is tricky. It looks very simple, but has to be filled out with good quality information. Good quality information. So I have no doubt that one might be able to fill it out very quickly with information that might not be convincing and at all. And as I said, the impact canvas can be the starting point for your proposals. So if you have, this is a slide I include in all my presentations. So for any follow-up questions, you can contact me anytime. But of course, I'm now here to answer any questions. I will see there are no questions at all. Okay. I don't know if I should be happy or worried that there are no questions, but I think that we will have the opportunity to have also a discussion. Martha, I would like to ask you to raise any objections about what I'm saying, or to disagree with me about what I'm suggesting about the templates. And I think that this is also good to happen amongst the experts and the panel, the members of the panel, because it's not actually, we all follow different ways to form a consortium, to build a proposal. So it's very good to show there that there is no single road to a success. But also any comments or criticism from your side, I would be very happy.
I have one slide with a caution sign on it, okay? Because not only are we reduced to 45 pages, it's a bit of a no mercy approach, because if you exceed those 45 pages, they won't be seen by evaluators. So it's very, very important that people are aware that this is a very strict rule, because those extra pages will be apparently removed by the system and won't go forward. So you could put your key punch point in the last few pages, and but if you've exceeded your 45 pages, it's not going to be seen. So it's really important that people are aware of this. And also, I think in some cases, and I'm going to mention this when I talk specifically about health, for stage 1, you've only 10 pages. And your criteria for evaluation will not look at directly at the impact. So you have different rules in terms of the evaluation of those 10 pages before you move forward to a full proposal and application process. So people need to be aware of the differences there as well. I'm going to cover some of your points as well in relation to policy, and talk about some of the policies that are influencing the health topics and other areas as well. So I'm kind of going to be putting a little bit of a layer on top of some of the stuff you've mentioned. So hopefully not crossing over too much, but it is very important that people are aware that this particular program is a goal-orientated program, and there is like an end in mind, you know what I mean? And that bigger picture and that bigger plan is very important for people to be aware of. And I'll talk a little bit about that as well. So they're my key points.
Actually, there, I thought that it might be also a good point for me to introduce you, but I will do it later. Okay. when you will be about to start your presentation. But perfect. You have over 20 years of experience in biomedical research, software technology industries with technical commercial expertise. And I know that you have also a wide range of experience with business startups, SME growth, exports. You worked for Enterprise Ireland with life sciences, software and technology companies as business advisor. So I'm sure there that if you were from the evaluator's side and you were receiving information that people should provide a summary of their idea, same like we have an impact summary, that you can actually, not only you, but we could all of us tell if some impact summary seems like a produce of people have spent only 5 hours in the very last days of providing this information, or 5 hours might be even too much. It might be only 1 hour, or it may have been something that actually people spent some good time and not necessarily in order to impress people with the length of information, but actually with the accuracy of the provided information. So this is that we have new templates also in other programs like the Accelerator, where even there the content is much, so there one needs only 10,000 characters, not words, for providing some answers. But some answers can be very good and convincing, and some other answers may be very, very generic or not convincing at all. So how could you think, which type of processes is this asking for?
Yeah, I have a little bit on my slide as well, and it talks about the pathway to impact. So you have to think of it almost on two levels. When you're addressing a proposal and a topic, you have, you know, the input and output of the project, but you also have the outcome and the impact and how you contribute to the overall EU goal. So there's project level kind of outcomes that you need to address, and yet there is this overarching impact that you also have to look at. So I have that on my slide. I don't go into it in too much detail because I think it'll depend on the topics involved. But they do have this scheme called Pathway to Impact, and it literally talks about these 4 different boxes. I'll present it in a little while. Okay.
Okay. I see also there are now 2 questions. One is from Aiseyul. While eliminating proposal ideas, what do you suggest? The one encompasses all the aspects in the strategy. I'm not sure I understood correctly your question. If someone could help me possibly, but you mean I may have suggested that at some extent one has to test proposal ideas and perhaps eliminate the ones that are not very strong. Or actually, it's not necessarily about proposal ideas, but we have a proposal idea. We are very committed and engaged to promote this idea. And then we have to come up with good, strong, convincing arguments, which means that at some point, this elimination aspect, which is a very nice idea, is not about the ideas of the proposals, but about the arguments we provide in order to support some of the project ideas. I think that the elimination process is a dialectic process, so this might seem too Marxist as a term, but this is a term there that we are a team, and we try as a team, either as part of a setting like a meeting, like the one we have now, a training meeting, or it might be through emails that we may come up with certain arguments and support them, and some other people might find them as weak, and thus either to leave them out or to improve them and provide a stronger grounding for these arguments. But please, yes?
I would suggest as well that I think what's really key in the area of health is expected outcomes that are outlined in the project and the scope of the project. So they're the buttons that you have to press. In some cases, they talk about expected outcomes where you have multiple expected outcomes that they want in the project. And in other cases, you may only need to address 1 or 2. So it's literally coming down to the call text. And if you're not addressing all of those expected outcomes, you may need an additional partner, or you may need to widen the scope of your the aspects of your project. So that's the key thing in addressing the health calls. They're very, very defined expected outcomes that they have in the work program.
Before answering or addressing the second question, Martha, I had this in mind for later, for the roundtable discussion, but I may ask the question now and we could elaborate later. But just imagine that someone might come and tell us, look, I'm a researcher, I'm a scientist, or I'm a technologist. I have an idea. I would like to build, let's say, robots for people who are old and face risks of exclusion or isolation, especially now with the corona pandemic, the COVID pandemic. And okay, I'm good in building things, but I know that my robots might increase isolation and solitude, or which means that at some point it might be that we may be asking people who might be very good in certain subject, like the subject of their research or their science or their practice in case of industry, to open their perspectives and, for instance, address gender aspects, like a robot might have a totally different influence on male elderly people than to female elderly people, or which means that at some point, this is the thing there that we see as a recurrent theme, that a good proposal is like a movie, a Hollywood movie production. You need too many people from different disciplines with different complementary expertise, experience, which means that it's not necessary that the time of 2 months or 6 months is little or is enough, but one needs to involve in the process people from different backgrounds. And this is actually something that we are not used to do, which means that it might be that many good ideas at the end will fail, will get rejected, because we fail to have built that ecosystem of how would you think there can this change? Because it might still be the case that the big majority of organizations are still following, we are still following the old paradigm. We are good only in what we are supposed to do. So to come up with such interdisciplinary proposals that can take into account several different dimensions, it's not something we feel very comfortable.
No, and I think the world of health is going to change very significantly in the next couple of years, because we're going to be able to have to talk a different language. You know, we're going to, like, you'll have the application of technology for health, you know, AI for health, and we're going to need to have multidisciplinary skills ourselves to actually be able to even understand the language. And if you look at the work program as well, you have a lot of connected health and you know, topics on artificial intelligence and the use of technology in healthcare. So we'll have to learn how to bridge that gap with other people who do not have the same skills as us and backgrounds in it. So the language of health is going to change, and that's a given. And most of the topics are multidisciplinary. They are, you know, you have to bring in multidisciplinary teams into these projects.
Yeah,
it's a challenge. It's a challenge.
Yeah, it's a challenge, because actually it means for many of us that we have to increase the costs from our side and see this more as an investment, that it's not only about succeeding necessarily in Horizon Europe. It might be that sooner or later all this will be asked for also for national funding, or will become routine processes in every aspect of our routine research as we now know it, but as it will change. I see there is a second question from Sila, and it is about the canvas, whether I could suggest some reference books, and is business model a good starting point. I think that there is so much bibliography or blogography about Canvas that it's anything that you will find could be a good starting point, and then it's only a matter how much time you will invest also personally for hands-on practice by filling out the Canvas template, and then see there how easy or how fast you can cope with this task. How can you collaborate with other colleagues of yours in your organization or in other organizations? So it's something that, as I mentioned before, the new templates have to be lived in, which means that you have to become familiar with them, which means that the more time you will invest, not necessarily on reading about Canvas, but about using it. And then once you have tried and made an attempt, then have your resulting Canvas checked by some other colleagues, get some feedback, and then improve. So this is actually, it's part of agile methodology, which Horizon Europe is now more and more about use of deploying agile methodologies for all steps of the proposal writing process. So I now proceed to my next presentation. And now it's about the impact. And the template is the same so as before. So we look in the template for impact, and then I will suggest a process flow that you can follow. And of course, anyone who would like to ask any questions, please ask me. So first of all, about the impact. First of all, it was for many years considered as the less important section of a proposal. It's a pity, it's a shame, but this is also the truth. And teams were happy to delegate someone else or anyone else to write the impact section on their behalf. I'm saying this because I have first-hand experience. In many cases, consortia were asking me, because they were all busy with all other parts and sections, that I should take care for the impact section. Of course, I did it, but not very happily, because I would never like the case of risking that the impact section would get lower scores than the other parts. And usually people cared for too little input. Actually, it was close to absolutely minimum. Usually people were providing, all consortium members were providing some information about exploitation and dissemination actions of each partner. So there were two tiny entries in a big table about dissemination and exploitation. And a main endemic disease for impact, as we experienced it in the past, was that it included generic parts due to excessive and extensive copy-paste, which means that it might not be unusual if you may have been evaluating different proposals in the same area, like for health, and you could see there people were promising similar stuff and coming up with similar dissemination, exploitation plans and communication activities for different proposals. So this was a problem there. And the bitter truth is that impact was of equal importance to the other parts, excellence and implementation, also in Horizon 2020. So the question there is, are there any chances for a change, or it will be a déjà vu, which means that we will follow the same practices? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. So a comparison between the new and the old proposal templates. Both in the old and in the new, there were these two sections. And in the new template, it is called Project's Pathway Towards Impact. And it is suggested to be of 4 pages. And the second section is about measures to maximize impact. And here we have to present the dissemination, exploitation, and communication measures. And it is suggested that this will be around 5 pages. Now, again, is the notion, the term of narrative that appears. And it's not only because we have also to present the outcomes and the wider impacts. And you remember this figure that one could start either from the needs or from the outcomes or from the results. So here, a natural way to start the process is from the dissemination, exploitation, communication measure, and see if for each distinct dissemination or exploitation communication measure, you are relating or linking this with some need or some result or a target group, which means that if you have dissemination, exploitation, communication measures that are, for instance, not related with some target group, you either have to extend your target group to include a group also that relates to this dissemination, exploitation, communication measures, or you have to leave this measure and come up with measures that are related to the target groups. And this is what I mentioned before, that in many cases proposals were so generic in the impact that it was like a vague cloud of needs which might be relevant to many different types of projects. And then we had some dissemination and exploitation communication measures, which were all of them again very generic. No, this time it has to be very specific, very specific. So imagine like having a matrix where for every distinct dissemination or exploitation communication measure, you have to have it linked with disseminating a result to a specific group that you aim to have a certain impact or related to some specific need. About measures to maximize impact, as I mentioned, the golden rule might be that no dissemination, exploitation, or communication activity should be unconnected to other project activities. So it might be like we might welcome the time of no more generic dissemination, exploitation, communication activities. Something else that I'm not uncomfortable to mention is that it's good to understand the difference between dissemination and communication. It's not always trivial. And I'm saying this because this is not only from the side of the proposers, it's also from the side of the evaluators, that one may see successful proposals which included in the impact certain activities as part of the communication activities, but in some other same successful proposal, similar or the same activities were presented as part of the dissemination activities. So it's good now if we try to be clear about what constitutes dissemination, what is related to communication. Now, a concern, worry from the side of the proposers is it worth to invest all these efforts on this section about impact? But I think that this is the same question like if someone would ask me, is it worth to invest time and effort and resources on understanding strategy documents and policies? I think the answer is obvious, and it's yes. Otherwise, one may have sacrificed the efforts and not having any options of winning a proposal. Actually, the excellence section 1 is a means to an end. So it's the idea how to seize challenges, achieve impacts, and effectuate positive change to the society. And this lies actually at the heart of Pillar 2 about global challenges, the concept of clusters and the destinations, which means that if someone would like to say, no, I prefer to stay in my gold ivory tower of pure research, then it's not Pillar 2 and the clusters like Cluster 1 that should be your aim, okay? About impact summary, I think everything I needed to say about it, I mentioned it before in the first presentation. And as I mentioned, it's not about the impact only. And it's all worth if you run a workshop with the other members of your consortium to build at least a first version of the impact summary. So I would like now to see if there are any other questions. There are no other questions. I don't know if it would be a good idea, Kemal, that we continue with the next presentation, or that we might make a short break. From my side, I don't need a break. I don't know if you need a break. Not Kemal, you personally, but our participants. I take it as a no. We continue with the next presentation. And it's about, you see my slides, yeah? About the excellence.
Yes, Diamantis, we
Yeah.
can see.
Yeah.
Now it's full screen.
Yeah. Now it's about the excellence part. And I deliberately wanted to present firstly about impact, because as I said before, it's usually a part that we fail to give much importance, and it's a pity because actually it has equal importance like the other two sections. So the idea is that, again, we will look in the template for excellence, and I will come up with a suggested process flow here. So here, the idea is that in contrast to impact, that was something like the stepchild, here excellence was for many years considered as the most important section of a proposal. Especially the ambition part, which in the past, many years before, it was also called advancement beyond the state of the art, attracted people's interest, endless discussions amongst consortium members, and now, as said before, it has equal importance to all other parts. But still, it is the part that monopolizes attention, resources, and time. And in the not always good old times, excellence could stem from either a high-quality research paper, or the basis for excellence might come from a recently submitted PhD thesis, or it might come as a result of an ambitious, so like Tim Berners-Lee plan for the World Wide Web that was characterized as vague but exciting. So it was part of an ambitious plan for future research in an organization, in an institute. These times are now over. And especially for Horizon Europe, there have been cataclysmic changes. And many of the comfort zones we have developed for dealing with excellence are now seriously endangered. And still, we haven't felt the changes. And time is running, which means that there is now less time to familiarize ourselves with the new templates. The biggest challenge here is that we need to provide content that appeared in the old templates in 4 different sections. So what now constitutes the objectives part is what in the past was included in objectives, in the relation to the work program, in the concept subsection, and also in the ambition subsection. And all these in 4 pages. So this is, of course, a suggestion in the templates. It can be more, of course, but when they mention 4 pages, actually they have something in mind, because in the past, these could have been taking even 20 or 25 pages of a proposal. So this was not uncommon at all. So the idea is that we briefly describe the objectives of the proposed work. We mention why these are relevant to the particular work program topic. And we have also to briefly express why these are measurable and verifiable and realistically achievable. But this is not all. We have to also mention why the project goes beyond the state of the art or the particular objectives we presented, indicate any exceptional groundbreaking research, innovation, novel concepts, illustrate the advance by referring to products, services that are already available in the market, refer also any patent or publication search that has been carried out. And again, this is not everything we need, because we still need to describe where the proposed work is positioned in terms of research and innovation maturity, something like the technology readiness levels. So it's lots of information. And a good question here is, how do we fit all these in 4 pages only? Now, the answer here is, and I'm very sharp and sure about what I'm saying, is that the key here is not to shrink extensive documents, but to expand on something that have been your winning concepts you presented in the impact summary. Why I'm saying this? Because usually we have been building proposal outlines of 10 pages. So now actually you are asked to provide everything that in the past may have been taking about 25 pages of a proposal only in 4 pages, which means that the idea here is that you start from the impact summary that it's only 1 page, and then you expand into 4 pages that include all information related to objectives of your project and the ambition you have. So this is the only way to come up with a good objectives section. Otherwise, you will be using too much information, which at the end you might need to get rid of. And this will not be looking good. So about the methodology, the suggested length of the entire section is 15 pages, but actually the methodology as such is only 10 pages. And there are other parts that one needs to provide, like to mention relevant projects is 1 page, interdisciplinarity is half a page, integration of social sciences and humanities another half a page, gender dimension is 1 page, open science is 1 page, and research and data management are 1 page again. Now, as you may remember in the first presentation about the policies, I mentioned there that it was a good practice or a bad practice, but for sure it was a practice we are all aware of, that we may have been copying, pasting parts about gender dimension, open science, research and data management, or even interdisciplinary. This is a bad practice. This is a bad practice because it's something like that you define to reduce your chances to get the highest score. So if your interdisciplinarity section, which might be half page, may be very generic and applicable to many or almost all other research proposals that will be competing with yours, then you might not be very convincing, which means that all these are parts that a consortium should study and provide very good and relevant and high quality content for each of these sections. This takes time and this needs serious work. So in case you might flirt with the idea that, okay, we have a core team, the core team will spend time on the objectives, on the state of the art, and on the methodology, the 10 pages, and we have some people there, we will ask them to delegate them to take care of providing blurbs and texts about interdisciplinarity, gender dimension, open science. In that way, you risk that your proposal will fail, and not fail in a good way. So, no, it is something that the core team has to also address all these aspects. This is something that increases the costs of the proposal production, but on the other hand, it also increases the chances of success. So now, a very important term here that I mentioned also before in the presentation about impact is the term narrative. So in the past, someone might have thought that this is a not good word at all for a research proposal. So it's something like that we need a good story, but this is now more and more important. And what does this mean in terms of timing and task sequencing? As I mentioned before, what I suggest is that you start from your impact summary, 1 page. Having in mind that Horizon Europe and all these co-creation processes and co-design are more closer to the agile methodologies, spirit, and mentality, you can consider this as sprint number 1. So in sprint number 1, you build the impact summary. In sprint number 2, you build the first version of your objectives and ambition. In sprint number 3, you elaborate on the methodology. the core part, the 10 pages of the methodology subsection. And then all other aspects like open science, research data management, gender dimension, all this can be dealt separately and independently also in later stages or sprints. Okay, but they are for sure not to be ignored. And as I said, actually Horizon Europe asks for agile methods to build the proposals. So I will check if there are any questions. No questions at all. Either what I'm saying makes perfect sense, or I'm telling you things that are not worth to ask any questions. But no, I'm joking. I know that you might need some time to familiarize yourself with the templates and come up with questions. It's there for why I have included in all of them my email, so that you feel comfortable to come back and ask me anytime any questions. So this is the last presentation from my side for today, and it's about the implementation section. And again, here some information. It was for many years considered as the second most important section of a proposal after the excellence. And people spent unimaginably much time to design, negotiate, develop, fine-tune the work packages. And work packages were like small kingdoms of the times of feudalism. And there were also wars between them or within them. So you may have had one work package led by one partner, and then having to accommodate partners as task leaders that had different perceptions or were of different schools of thought. And one may have been building actually everything that we have been used about geopolitics. They may have been also followed same or similar practices in the way that consortia were building their work packages and their tasks or the tables of their deliverables. And actually, project teams were spending sometimes so much time on this part, and they were coming up with so much details about tasks, deliverables, as if they were taking it for granted that their proposal would be funded. Okay, which means that with less details, they might have been same successful, but this is something that didn't necessarily pay off. And many times the links between section 1 and section 3, so excellence and implementation, were not very well taken care after. So there were lots of loose ends, like in objectives, we were declaring some innovations or some ambitions to go beyond the state of the art, but everything we promised there did not reflect what exactly we had included in our work plan for tasks, work packages, and deliverables, which means that it may be the case that people who wrote section 1 got drunk or left the place for some time, and then when they came back to return and elaborate on section 3, they forgot what they promised there in section 1. This is something that doesn't make any good impression at all. Now, comparison between new and old. 2 sections now instead of 4, and section 3.1, actually the work plan and resources includes all tables and has to be, or it's recommended to be at the level of 14 pages. There is section 3.2 that is called capacity of participants and consortium as a whole. This is about 3 pages, the recommended length. And there is a reason for celebration, as I mentioned before, that we don't need anymore to provide this old section 3.2 about management structure and decision making. And in the old templates, there was section 3.3, the presentation of consortium as a whole. Now it is section 3.2, and it is actually upgraded to 3 pages. So in the past, as I will show immediately after, the practice was to consortia were presenting there half a page of generality. So it was not necessarily very well prepared content. And new section 3.1 actually contains old section 3.1 and section 3.4. And it includes all milestones and critical risks that were part of section 3.2, the table showing number of person months, summary of efforts, financial information. So all these tabular information is now part of section 3.1. And there are no surprises here. And about section 3.2, it's an evolution of the old section 3.3, as I mentioned. And what I will now present, it's something, most consortia, they were presenting something like a map of Europe annotated with some partners. This comes from a proposal that I was part of, and it was a successful proposal. And this comes from another proposal that was also successful. And so you see, people may have not even cared. They may have been using the same maps for several different proposals in their organizations, or they were presenting information about the expertise of each partner and how it related to certain aspects that the proposal was covering. So this is not a good idea anymore to deal with section 3.2. Okay, so now section 3.2, the idea is that it is 3 pages and it has to be filled with very high quality information. So it might be the case that you should dedicate one sprint, so one step, one phase of your proposal development for addressing section 3.2. And the idea is that here we have to describe the consortium, how this consortium matches the project objectives and brings together the necessary disciplinary and interdisciplinary knowledge. So how we have all the necessary expertise in social science, humanities, open science practices, gender aspects of research and innovation. So how the partners will have access to critical infrastructure, describe how the members complement one another, in what ways does each of the partners contribute to the project, and if applicable, describe also any industrial or commercial involvement, which means it's not a good idea if someone here would like to think, okay, I will build a table, I will show there which are the interdisciplinary partners or the partners that are related or relevant to gender research. No, this is not a good idea at all. This needs to be a very well-written section. You can still use some figures, some drawings, or some tables, but as is my understanding about this, it has to have very high quality and not nonsense information at all. So it's all worth to actually demonstrate there that apart of having a very excellent proposal, you have also the appropriate consortium to implement this proposal. So it is in this respect that it is a very important section. And if we are about to follow practices of the past, people here might think, okay, some text there, now they recommend 3 pages, but I can put there several big maps of Europe and several tables, so it's not a problem at all. No, this is the safe way to fail. So this was my last presentation for today. I would welcome any questions in case there are. Otherwise, I will now enjoy listening to Martha's presentation. And I would like to now present Martha. First of all, Martha, it's an honor that we have you together with us today. Dr. Martha Kahili is National Contact Point for Health in Ireland. and she's also state representative for Innovative Health Initiative. And Martha has expertise in EU research funding since FP6, FP7, Horizon 2020 now for Horizon Europe, and has a broad range of experience from business planning, technical assessments, financial due diligence, investments, sales, and marketing. And Martha has worked primarily with emerging technology and software companies and is a trained business coach and business mentor. So, Martha,
Hello,
the
how
floor
are
is
you?
yours.
Can you see me? Is my camera on? Sorry.
Yes, yes.
Okay. And can you see my presentation and just the red dot on the screen? Okay.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
I'm gonna use my pointer. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to present. I'm a national contact point for health in Ireland, and I'm also the state representative for the Innovative Health Initiative. I'm going to take you on a little bit of a journey through all of the different elements of health-related funding, some of which is at a stage of being ready and open at the moment, and others which is still in development and will come on stream later on in the year. So just by way of an agenda, sorry now, just move my presentation. Sorry. Okay. So I'm going to talk firstly about the health program, which is open as of the 22nd of June. I'm going to talk a little bit about the cancer mission and its state of development, the Innovative Health Initiative, which precedes the Innovative Medicines Initiative, which you may be familiar with. I'm going to mention the EIC. I'm not going to go into in depth on this because it's an entirely different program, but there is health-related challenges in this program, and I'm just going to mention a few of those. On the EU side as well, there's also future partnerships that may be relevant, but I'm not going to go into them because they're still in the stage of development and were mentioned earlier on today, and it depends on your country's participation in these. I might mention a few as I go along, but I'm not going to go into in depth in it. So essentially, this is a bit of a signposting kind of presentation. So I'm going to start off by just talking about it, and this was mentioned this morning. There is a big overarching strategic plan for Horizon Europe with a budget of about 95 billion. We now have a plan for 2021 to 24. You see a lot of key themes in there: climate neutrality, basically climate change, the green agenda, digitalization, very, very strong themes in it. And this will become a part, this is basically feeds into all programs right across the program. Within the Horizon Europe program as well, there's very defined objectives for health, and it is a defined plan for health. And these need to be considered. And I'll talk about where you see the details of these in a minute. You also see the missions. We have 5 different missions. In the area of health, you have the cancer mission, and that's going to have its own program of research as well. You have partnerships. The difference between Horizon Europe and Horizon 2020 is a lot of these partnerships have been, I suppose, reviewed and cleaned up, I suppose. And what they're proposing to do in this new program is there's going to be what they call a single basic act or a common legislation that's governing these partnerships. That's a whopping 500-page document that's currently being reviewed at the moment, and that will be the framework for the Innovative Health Initiative. So I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail. So you've seen this chart already, and basically there's many opportunities for health right across the program, the EIC being quite a unique program with health related challenges. I'm going to talk specifically about the health program in Pillar 2, but with this, basically there's multiple funding pots as well. So there isn't just one particular program. There's multiple programs of activities. So the first one is the main health program. This is the one that's pretty much it's open right now, and it's at the stage of readiness for 2021-22. There's 7.7 billion in dedicated funding for this program. You might see here the NGEU, which is the Next Generation EU. That original budget was 6.4 for the health program, but the Next Generation EU gives us a 1.3 billion top up, and this is money that's going to be used in the first few years of the program. And you may see references to this in your in the health work program. From the health program, 1.2 billion in funding will move across into the Innovative Health Initiative, and that's matched 50-50 by industry. This is a public-private partnership that's matched in terms of funding by industry. I'll go into that in more detail later on. The total budget here is 2.4 billion. Aside from that, a lot of our meetings now are held jointly with DG. The Horizon Europe program basically is under DG Research, but we also interact a lot with DG Sante. And at the start of the pandemic, a 5 billion budget was basically set aside for EU for health. This is going to touch on things like boosting EU pandemic preparedness, improving healthcare, and helping fight against cancer. So this particular program is still under development. As I said, it's under DG Sante, but we will also be keeping a close eye on it because it's going to cross over into the health program, and the details of that is still to be unfolded. Overall, there's about 14 billion worth of funding coming down the stream, coming down the track, basically all the way through 2027 for health. And it's probably going to be a bit more by the time we finish. So the health program has been published online. I have quite a lot of links on my things, on my presentation, which will be available afterwards, but you can link directly to the health program there. For the first 2 years, you have 2 billion worth of funding dedicated to research. And the first round of calls opened on the 22nd of June. And these are all published now on the EU funding and tenders portal. We took a little bit of a journey through that this morning. It is worthwhile familiarizing yourself with this, maybe setting up an account, flagging areas of interest, learn how to navigate through it. And also, if you're putting up a profile, I would suggest that you don't just express an interest in a topic, you highlight your areas of expertise and what you can bring in terms of value to a project, because that's what's going to get, have people coming back to you and discussing projects with you. One thing you will notice about the program is that there's a lot of hot themes and topics in the program. You talk a lot about electronic data, advanced therapeutics, healthcare systems, artificial intelligence, next generation therapies, the data and use of data, electronic patient records. So there are lots and lots of hot themes and topics as you go through it, and this will continue to be a trend for the next 7 years. So the way the program is structured is we have a 2-year program. These are grouped into 6 destinations. The program itself are 6 different sections in the document. The topics can be a single stage or 2-stage topics. Okay, so for 2-stage topics, it's worth bearing in mind that these are generally larger topics. There's generally more participants involved in this, and there's generally a smaller number of applications. Okay, for every topic, there's an assigned budget, and they tell you how many projects will be funded for that budget. The instrument then is highlighted, and they basically, and I know this looks like a whole load of letters from the alphabet, but basically the instruments are research and innovative actions, coordinated support actions. I'm going to explain them in the next slide. PCPs, that should be PPIs and IAs. I will explain them in the context of the project, because there's very few in the program itself, but it's worth using an example to explain them. So basically our instruments, this is how things are going to be funded. So you have research and innovation actions, and essentially every time you see RIA, these are collaborative projects. You need at least 3 independent legal entities from 3 independent legal state or member states or associated states. And the activity itself is research and innovation. For coordinated support actions, there's quite a few of them in this particular work program. They're about contributing to the objectives of Horizon Europe. They're co-funding activities. A lot of them is about networking and participation. And I call them the building blocks, because the way I see them is the particular coordinated support actions in this program are leading into future co-funds and future partnerships or future activities. And the people they want involved, the stakeholders they want involved are defined in the topic itself. I'll give you some examples as we go along. So just in terms then of how the work program is structured, you have the topic structure or unique identifiers for all of the topics. So it follows quite a simple formula. It's in the Horizon program. This is the short acronym for health. It tells you the year the call is open, and this is the destination that they're referring to. And then you have the unique number, if it's a 1 or 2 stage, and a unique title. You'll have the topic budget, the number of projects, etc. I'll give you an example in a minute. It tells you the year the topic is going to close in, and then basically the action type or research and innovation action or coordinated support action. What's really important is that you look at what is in the written text with each topic, because they talk about the expected outcomes. And in some cases, they have many expected outcomes, and you need to be able to address all of these to score the maximum amount of points. In some cases, they say, we need you to address 1 or more, or 2 or more, or some of these. Okay, so you need to look at the language that is being used. The scope, sorry, I should actually say in terms of expected outcomes as well, sometimes they specifically exclude disease areas. And I'll give you an example of those in a second. And other times they specifically include disease areas. So you need to keep an eye on that. The scope tells you how wide the topic is going to go, and how far it's going to go. So, and then just in terms, we mentioned this earlier on, what you have to bear in mind in addressing the topics is this whole pathway to impact, okay? And there's different words and languages used, but essentially you have stuff that happens at the project level, and then you have something you need to think also on the EU level. So on the project level, the inputs are things like resources, skills and capabilities, what has been used in the project, and then the project outcome has got to do what comes out of the project. But you have to also address the outcome and the impact on a European level, and that bigger picture needs to be addressed. The other thing to keep a close eye on is the reference documents and policies, and these sometimes can be written and included in the footnotes of the topic. So just bear that in mind. I may mention cancer. Cancer is a key area of research in Horizon Europe, and there's the cancer mission. So because of that cancer mission, these topics, there's not as many topics on cancer in this particular work program. There's a few, but there will be a separate work program for the missions later on, and that is currently in development. And I'll give you an update on where that is progressing at the moment. So in this area of cancer, you need to take a look at the text very, very carefully. And just to give you a few examples, there are some topics that specifically exclude cancer, and it's written sometimes in the title, sometimes in the body of text, and sometimes in the footnotes. So please take note of that as you're addressing your topics. Now, I just want to talk about the destinations. These are the 6 different destinations, or the 6 different sections of the work program. And I'm going to go through each of these. The destination 4, 5, and 6, these focus a lot on technology and the modernization of the healthcare systems. And they're not all equal. They have very different kind of number of topics included. Now, what's important about these is when you look at the work program, there is an introductory part to every section or every destination. And in there, you find details of the key strategic orientations to the work program. And it's important that you read that introductory paragraph, because that gives you a lead in to the kind of impacts and the key strategic orientations that they're expecting you to address in your topic. Okay. So destination number 1 is about staying healthy in a rapid changing society. These are all the topics involved. I've structured each of my slides on the topics in a particular format. So this is the total budget. This is the year the topic is going to be open. So 2021, 22. This is the instrument that's going to be involved, and it tells you whether it's a 1 or 2 stage call. Now, what's also included here is I've given a total budget for the topic. Okay, so this is the 60 million. So this is all in millions. So 60 million will be dedicated to this first topic. But they also tell you in the work program that 6 topics are going to be funded, or 6 projects are going to be funded at about approximately 10 million each. And you have something, another one down here, just by way of an example, you've 10 projects that are going to be funded at 6 million each. So just taking a look at some of these, I'm not going to go in depth into all of the topics because it'll be next to impossible. So this is an RIA, so this is a research project focused on molecular and neurobiological understanding of mental health. Okay, the CSAs, they're generally about getting networks together. So this particular one is on health literacy. This particular one here is a CSA, but the partners that they're bringing in for this particular one are leading into a co-fund. So may involve more your ministries for health or those people who fund research in your country in the area of health, and our national agency is involved in this particular one. So it's about bringing that network together for a future co-fund on personalized medicine. Okay, and this one is for us as NCPs, a network for us and our training. So just a few, I'm going to just touch on one or two that might be of interest, just so you have a little bit of background knowledge. So there's one here on trustworthy artificial intelligence. Now, this is a good example of a topic that's very, very open. It can apply to multiple disease areas. So this is chronic non-communicable diseases, but it can apply to many disease areas. So a lot of the topics in this particular work program are open, and you basically define your own area of research. If you're looking at something like artificial intelligence, this comes up quite a lot, either in you may not even see it in the project titles, but it's buried in the text. New legislation is coming down the track on artificial intelligence, and you should be aware of that. And things like trustworthy AI and white papers in AI, I've left a few links to these resources and documents at the end of my presentation, but you need to be aware of them. And to the extent that the ethics section in an application process now you has an AI section. It's not just gender and data and open science anymore. You also have to address your use of AI and your application of AI if you've had it in a project. Okay, so as I said, some of these are 1 and 2 stage calls, so I will leave that one there. So that the next destination is living and working in a healthy, promoting environment. And this is about, our internal, our indoor and outdoor environment, air quality, health. The first one is about exposure to electromagnetic fields, things like 5G, 6G, which are, there's concerns about their use and their health implications, but also they're the foundation of many technologies that health uses, or health technology uses as well. So that is one that's addressed there. Some of the others also relate to kind of environmental aspects and how, so it could be temperature changes, it could be also the risk coming from environmental changes and future pandemics as well. So they're quite broad, but also quite interesting. So destination number 3, this is by far the largest destination because it not just tackles diseases, it's also looking at, it's not kind of communal diseases, it's also things like cancer, cardiovascular diseases, and so on. So just to give you an example here, this is one, the very first topic is one that's specifically focused on palliative care for cancer. And just to flag this, originally this specifically excluded cancer. So, and it is very likely that a palliative care topic will come online in the future in an area that specifically focuses on other disease areas and kind of like anything that's not cancer, basically. So that's going to come down the track, I think, in 23, 24. Second topic is about repurposing medicine. This was very, very topical in the treatment of COVID, and is likely to continue going forward as well, reusing medicines that could be applied to different disease areas. Again, we have another topic here on artificial intelligence. Originally, this didn't include clinical validation, but now this seems to be really key in this topic. And you have 10 projects that are going to be funded there. And I suppose I should flag as well that this was originally a 100 million budget. So it is very likely we will see more AI topics coming again in the future. We have one particular topic here on SARS and looking at, the individual responses to the virus and why some people are more susceptible to COVID than others. The next two are kind of, again, what I call building blocks. They're leading into future co-funds and partnerships. This one is on antimicrobial resistance and looking at bringing people together, which we may actually lead into a future co-fund. There's also a project here, a CSA, that's looking at pandemic preparedness. Now, the Commission has already asked for us to select member state representatives to be part of those discussions. So that is something that happens at a kind of a member states level. So we have sent in nominations for that. So that is probably a bit of a closed consortium from the point of view of applications. So just here, this is the second part of destination number three. You're looking at the next generation immunotherapies. Again, this is very, very topical. You're looking at new types of technologies. Vaccine 2.0 as well, that new applications of vaccine technologies like mRNA, antibody blocking vaccines approaches, different strategies. That is not the traditional vaccine approach. Okay. We have one topic here on rare diseases. And this particular one here, this pandemic preparedness one, that is actually a lead on from this consortium here. So resources will be dedicated to this particular activity later on, and that will be open for applications in 2022. I'm not going to talk too much about the last ones. Sorry. So destination number 4. This is about ensuring access to innovative, sustainable, and high-quality healthcare. In a nutshell, this destination is all about the modernization of the healthcare systems. So the first topic is about enhancing quality of patient care and patient safety. This is a research project. The second one is data decision supports tools focused on cancer. Now, the next ones, these are research projects, but the next one is quite interesting because what they're doing here is they're getting together a healthcare innovation procurement network. There was a workshop held by the European Commission this morning trying to, for stakeholders in this particular area. And essentially what they want to do is bring together those who procure for healthcare, whether it's your healthcare ministry or healthcare organization, bring those stakeholders together and to look at what they might procure for jointly together in the future. So these next two topics in 2022, which is a PCP and a PPI, are linked to this particular network and this particular activity. So essentially, this is resources and funding to the tune of about 40 million that these procurers could utilize again in the future. And I'm going to explain this a little bit better on the next slide. So the final topic here is better financial models for healthcare. Again, this is going to be very important going forward because we have changed how we supply, say, software into healthcare. You're not looking at your upfront capital costs anymore. Sometimes technology is now supplied on a per user basis or month by month basis, and it's reoccurring revenue for a company. So the business models related to technology is also changing. So looking at the value and how you look at value in healthcare is going to be very important as well. So I'm just going to talk now about these three and how they're linked. So this is the first one where the Commission are very keen to get one big, large consortium together. They're funding this to the tune of 5 million. And it's about creating a network of public and private procurers, bringing all the stakeholders together, anyone that procures for healthcare. And essentially what is going to happen is they get together, look at their challenges, their unmet needs or their common needs, and then through the instruments called PCPs and PPIs, these activities can be funded. Now, PCP is 100% funded. What this is where there's no known solution, and you can basically contract somebody to do the work for you. So that's why it's 100% funded, and it's an R&D service contract that is awarded. Okay, and in a public procurement or PPI is 50% funded. So you might have multiple people who can address this issue, but what happens here is they get access to reference sites and pilot projects, and they get an opportunity to commercialize their innovations. So the matching funding in this particular case comes from the funding organizers and the commission. So these actually are going to be instruments that are going to be used quite a lot going forward. So it's worth keeping an eye on them. And, you know, the Commission are now trying to get that network together, and that's going to be very important for the next 7 years. Destination number 5 is about unlocking the full potential of new tools, technologies, and digital solutions for a healthy society. This is quite broad in terms of this destination. You have everything. So the very first one here, this is the only IA, which is an innovative action. So this is actually looking at surgical smart devices and their surgical implementation in resource-constrained environments. Now, this could be something like a developing country where they don't have surgical interventions, or it could be something like a COVID situation where you might need something that can be done remotely and safely. This is funded at 70% because it's technology that should be at a TRL 7, so it's ready to go, it's ready to be commercialized. But it's quite a unique topic because it's the only one that's an innovative action. Next generation advanced therapies, again, very, very interesting, looking like things like mRNA editing and things like that, very gene and stem cells. That's going to be very, very topical going forward in the health program. Innovative tools and the reuse of health data. This is going to be really, really important. You may or may not be aware, but there's the 2030 digital compass, which is basically setting out digital goals for the European Commission for the next all the way through to 2030. And one of those goals is to make 100% of citizens' information available, to their own medical records are available to them right across Europe. So if I go to a doctor, I will have access to all my medical information, or whether I get x-rays or any kind of thing, I will actually have access to all of my medical information, and it's mine as an individual. So that is a really, really big goal for Europe. And I think that's going to dictate a lot of the technology and developments that are going to happen in this program over the next couple of years. So other topics here, prescription drugs for major diseases except cancer, again, that's biomarker related. Again, use of data, real world data and synthetic data. Computational models for patient stratification. Again, this uses a lot of AI, machine learning, and it's all about personalized medicine and personalized care. So these are quite interesting topics, but yet quite broad. So next, destination number 6 is about maintaining an innovative, sustainable, and globally competitive healthcare industry. So again, a lot of mixed topics in here. You have green pharmaceuticals looking for alternatives to our existing pharmaceutical drugs that are green and environmentally friendly. The next topic is development, procurement, and responsible management for new antimicrobials. And again, this kind of leads into a future co-fund activity as well, where they're looking at the development of antimicrobial, the next generation of antimicrobials. Next topic is looking at trusted mobile health labels in Europe. Essentially, this is about labels and standards for mobile health and connected devices. And this is going to be very important as we develop more sensors and technologies and move towards remote patient care. Enhancing cybersecurity of connected devices, again, very, very important topic going forward as we move towards connected remote monitoring and care. Data amortization techniques. A lot of this is about reuse of data. So just say you're involved in a clinical study, you could use COVID as an example. It's very important that those kind of that data and patient cohort information can be shared and used again where relevant for other studies. So there's a big push towards the reuse of clinical and health data. Again, here's a mention of those new pricing and payment models and looking at that. That's good, as I said, that relates to how we are now going to fund technology into healthcare. Next, CSA is looking at smart health and innovation hubs. There's a couple of existing hubs mentioned in this topic, so you might want to look at those particular hubs to see if they're doing some activity on this. And the very last topic is looking at an electronic health record exchange. As I said, that again will feed into that 2030 digital compass goal of making everybody's data, medical data, available to them. So that's the end of the destinations. The calls are for the first round of calls are open as of the 22nd of June and close on the 21st of September. And then for the 2022 single stage calls, these will open in October to April 2022. The two-stage calls for 2022 will open in October to February. That's the 10 pages. It'll be evaluated, and then you get a go, no go, somewhere probably around March, and then with a closing date in September. I should add as well that the first round of calls are all single stage. So for this particular round for 2021, it's all single stage calls. Now, we mentioned this earlier on. It's worth taking a note of, the page numbers are going to be limited. 45 pages for an RIA, coordinated support actions are 30 pages. And if it's a two-stage call, that first stage is just 10 pages. So you have to get it very, very precise. There is warnings on the system that you will be invited to resubmit if you exceed your page limit. If you continue to proceed, the excess pages will be removed. So you need to be very aware of that because they're not going to be available to the evaluators at the other side. And I also just suggest the general annex. I know you were going through some of the details earlier on how a project is going to be evaluated, but the particular general annex will actually give you lots of details on that evaluation process. The other thing to be aware of as well, and this is kind of general information, there's over 16 countries that are not part of the EU that are associated countries, and those associated agreements are at the stage where they're going to be signed as well. And in contrast to last year, the UK is now an associated country, which is a big issue for Irish researchers because we partner quite a lot with UK partners. Some good resources, again, the General Model Grant Agreement, the proposal documents, these are online. You can click these if you get access to my presentation. Most of my links are clickable. I'm going to move on to the EIC because I want to just highlight a few opportunities. I'm not going to go in depth into the EIC program because it's multiple programs all in one. I'm just going to highlight just the health-related opportunities. So, as you know, this is kind of everything from, I have a breakthrough idea to startups, to SMEs, to scalable companies, and it's funded through grant and equity or a blend of grant and equity. In most cases, 100% funded. They have about 10 billion of a budget there. You can download the documents and get a lot more details, but I'm just going to highlight the fact that you essentially have a Pathfinder program, a transition program, and an accelerator. These basically are for early stage ideas to I'm setting up a company to I'm scaling a company. But they have specific related challenges which have almost like their own funding streams and their own funding boxes. And the reason these are of interest is because they instead of a bottom-up approach, they have a top-down approach saying basically we want some projects in this area. So you have two awareness inside, which has got to do with consciousness, things like autonomous vehicles and stuff like that could fit in there, but tools to measure and stimulate activity in the brain, emerging technologies in cell and gene therapy, engineering of living materials. Now, these can also involve collaborative research. You don't have to be a company to be involved in these. So these are still early stage ideas. The pilot projects, and the reason they're pilot is that you would have had to be funded with these Pathfinder programs in the past, or FET, what they call the predecessor, the FET programs, to participate in these pilot stages. But in the future, there might be worth keeping an eye on. This is focused on medical technology and devices from lab to patient. So the accelerated challenge then, there's particular opportunities for strategic digital and health technologies. And again, this is a two-stage application, but it's for companies at a more advanced stage of development. So that's all I'm going to say on that. It's worthwhile taking a look at the document if these are your areas of interest, because essentially you have a bit of a competitive advantage in applying for these challenges, because you're not competing with open calls that cover all sorts of technology. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the cancer and the cancer mission. As I mentioned earlier, you have 5 different missions. These are considered the biggest global challenges, or the biggest challenges for Europe. In the area of health, cancer is the biggest mission. So essentially, why cancer? 2.6 million are diagnosed with cancer in Europe every year, and it kills 1.2 million every year. Now, essentially what this was, I suppose some of these statistics were pre-COVID, so it's a little bit difficult to say if the statistics are going to be the same. We have multiple issues going on now, and I know from talking to my own colleagues in Ireland that it is possible that this 25% increase in cancer incidence could increase even further in the next couple of years. So if we're on the same path, this could get worse. So you have things that are contributing to cancer: aging populations, unhealthy lifestyles, unfavorable in work environments, and now you have COVID as well. There's also a huge variation in the treatment of cancer across Europe, and there's inequality in terms of access to treatment and care. So these are all the issues that need to be addressed in the area of cancer. So you've essentially 2 different programs, 2 different plans that are going to contribute to the health mission. You have the cancer mission itself, but you've also got the European Beating Cancer Plan. So this is kind of like comes from DG Sante and feeds into that cancer mission. So you're going to start looking at all the different areas of cancer and coming up with a strategic plan to address it. So this particular document was published last year. We're taking a look at about 30-40 pages long, but essentially it's the start of the bigger plan, and I'm going to go through that in a little bit more detail now. So this particular plan sets out a goal that by 2030 we'll have saved more than 3 million lives, with people living longer and better. They're going to look at ensuring equitable access to treatment. Areas of action include preventable, optimize diagnosis and treatment, and support the quality of life, and also to increase our understanding of cancer. So in this document, they outline 13 different recommendations right across the area of cancer. And you can see these are highlighted here. And you could take each one of these and actually develop them even further, right? So essentially what has happened is these are the recommendations. And from these recommendations, they've gone and they've basically looked at the specific actions that they're going to. So these are the actions that they're going to look at. And then from each of these, you have specific actions that fall further down in terms of the recommendations. So if you drill down further, so this is the stage they're at now. They've got the high level actions, but what they want to do now is to break it down into specific actions. And some of these specific actions could be at a policy level, and some of it may involve the development of technology. Okay, so you can, and also what's important here is the actors involved. Who is involved? Who are the stakeholders that need to be involved in understanding cancer, or in this case, prevention of cancer? So prevention of cancer can come from things like policy changes related to alcohol and tobacco and different legislation and environmental kind of workplace environments, things like that. But also the stakeholders can vary depending on the actions that are involved. It could be academics, it could be citizens, it could be healthcare, and it could be right back up into government. So this is the stage that the plan is at, and this will form the whole cancer mission going forward. So it's a very, very big, ambitious project. So we will probably know more by Q3, Q4 of 2021, and this will basically have its own stream of funding and activities going forward. What is going to be important about this is that it'll have its own specific actions, which are measurable, realistic. They'll be time focused, and they'll be monitored going forward. So that's the idea of the cancer mission, that it will become something that will be goal orientated. So now I'm going to leave that there, and I'm just going to talk a little bit about the Innovative Health Initiative, because this is going to be another program on itself. As I mentioned earlier on, this has its own funding stream, 2.4 billion, and involving a public-private partnership with industry. This is the follow-on to the Innovative Medicines Initiative, but it's going to look quite different, because in the Innovative Medicines Initiative, they focus a lot on pharmaceutical and drug development, and the primary partner was FPA. This is going to be much more diverse. You're going to have multiple industry groups in Europe involved. Imaging and diagnostics, biotech, digital industries, all going to be involved in this partnership. 1.2 billion will come from the health cluster, and 1.2 billion will come from health-related industries. There will also be other groups involved called contributing partners. So these could be patient organizations, philanthropists, other people who may contribute to areas of research. Now, just so you know, the timeline on this as well, very likely we're not going to see activity until about Q4 2021, but worthwhile getting up to speed on what's happening right now. The primary website for this in the industry groups is euhealthppp.org. They actually just published an updated strategic research agenda. It's still in draft stage, but it gives you a bit of an idea on the direction of travel of this public-private partnership over the next few years. So it's worth taking a look at that. As I mentioned earlier on, this type of partnership is going to be governed by the Single Basic Act, which is the one legal framework that's going to govern all partnerships of this size. That's about a 500-page document, so it's quite a lot to digest, and that is now going through the discussions and the debates at Parliament and Council level. So that's what's delaying the development on this. So these are the industry groups involved. As you can say, a lot of mixed technology, but these have all signed up and committed to this. So, and in the areas of research, I looking at the documents and the background details, they're definitely going to make a big play on medical care and medical and healthcare systems. So that's going to be interesting to watch. Diagnosis, drugs, devices, delivery, and data, they're the key focuses. They call it the 5Ds. And if you want to take a look at their strategic research agenda and their presentation, it's online, and it's quite interesting, because now is the time to get up to speed on this particular program. So just to talk a bit about a few dates and stuff to keep an eye out on, this was mentioned earlier on. There's a Health Information Day, and the advantage of this Health Information Day is that it's for health, is that they're going to go through each individual topic and are going to go into more depth into the topics than I would have today, and give you an idea of what to look out for. And I think they're just going to focus on 2021, but definitely taking a look at that, because it's going to be worthwhile. The other thing as well, we were talking about partnerships earlier on. There is the NCB network are actually organizing a brokerage event on B2 Match, which is the EEN network, where you can actually look for partners, and it's kind of like a matchmaking event, and essentially you can have individual meetings with people who might be looking for new partners or partners with particular skills. I think the key here as well is that when you're putting up your profiles, make sure you add details about your expertise, not just the topics you're interested in, but also let people know what you can bring to the project. What are your key skills? What is the value that you can add to a consortium and to a project? The last two slides, and this is pretty much it for me. I have plenty links here, some details related to the strategy documents, policy documents, background information on particular programs I've mentioned. And also what I have here is some details related to AI and the new legislation, trustworthy AI. And also what's really going to be important is if anyone's doing clinical trials, they should be aware that there's templates for clinical studies and things like that. So that's pretty much where I am at, and that is it for me.
Thanks, Martha.
You're welcome. Was I too fast?
I enjoyed listening to you. I am still worried because I don't see any questions. Why am I about to ask you several questions and none from the audience, from the participants, hasn't come up with any question? But I think that, okay, we should all feel comfortable to ask questions also.
I'm very open. I'm very open to questions, and I think it's a bit of a trend with webinars. People have stopped asking questions, so we've had the same problem. It's sometimes a little bit difficult for organisers because there is no questions at the end. But if there is anything in particular that I've mentioned that you'd like to ask,
I think because we are also a little ahead of time, so I think that we might use this as we did also before during my presentations, for having a discussion about something that otherwise I should not keep it for later. I was listening to your presentation, and I was thinking actually what I also mentioned before, that it's too much information there. It's too much information there for the calls, for the topics, for the background developments, which means that for a scientist, a researcher, it can be an early stage researcher or a relatively senior researcher with much knowledge or with little knowledge, but with too much zealous to learn. The thing is that at some point it is too difficult to navigate in all these excessive amounts of information, and at the end there is always the case that you might go for something that may have been, in retrospect, you might see there that it was not the right decision to go for it, which means that perhaps each of us should be part of ecosystems where we may have people with different complementary or supplementary skills. So the idea there to have simply someone who may be a good researcher joining with someone who might come from industry or have some relative experiences for writing proposals doesn't seem like an ecosystem at all. So it's only a very basic thing. So what are your experiences from Ireland? So how are people there? So your customers, so to say, which may be from industry, from academia, from research centers, and maybe in all their phases, they may be successful researchers or with a big, long track record, or they may be young. So how do they cope with all these excessive amounts of information? And does this help them to take faster decisions? Or is there something that you could provide us with, some like advice or like suggestions, or what to do or what not to do?
I think, just as a starting point, I think it's worthwhile reviewing. Like if I was a health researcher, I would start by reviewing the work program for health. That's what's out there at the moment. The other programs, they will come on stream later on, and then we'll have more information on how they're going to work and what the content of it is. What we have right now is the content for the health program for this year and into 2022. So I would start there, because you either have something that's specifically relevant for you there or you don't. And there might be opportunities later on. So if there's something in there that's relevant, then you can learn the other elements of the program. And I know it might seem daunting that you have all these documents and all the different, templates and all the rest. The thing is, they're almost set in stone now. They're going to be there and the same for the next 7 years. So once you learn this, the system kind of gets locked down. The process gets locked down for the next 7 years. So I would start just, if I was just looking at the low-hanging fruit right now and what I needed to do if I was a researcher, I would just look and see, is this year's program relevant to me? Is there something in there that I can apply for, be a partner in? And if so, how do I get involved and who might get involved with? There's still 3 months to go, and there's plenty of documents that you can be working your way, building up your knowledge on as you go through. But you're either in or out at this stage on the first round, and then later on you can be building up your knowledge depending on what you're applying for. If you're a researcher and you haven't done this before, try and be a partner before you lead, and that way then you're learning from others as you get involved in projects. So some people have the experience and have been coordinators for years and have been digesting the documents and background information for months. Okay, and they're good. They will be good to lead a consortium. Others will be much better as partners. And if you can find and build yourself into those networks where you have good coordinators, I think you have your best advantage.
That advice, especially about first being part of a team and then later on leading, is for sure good. But I will challenge you with a question which might be also, I actually mean it seriously, but I don't know whether you have been in Turkey ever.
No.
But you haven't been. Okay, I have
know.
been several times, and the question to you, so now it's hypothetical, if you have ever been in a Turkish pastry shop, so there you can stay not only for 7 years, you can stay also for 7 lives. And even if you have the option to get as many calories, you still have a problem, which means that this is the thing there, that at some point there is too much information there, too many options. I have also myself receiving emails from researchers and research groups, and they were bombing me with too many options. So same like what you did before when you were presenting the topics. They are thinking aloud, telling me that, okay, for this we have some relevant experience because of a national project, but also for this we have been doing something recently, or we have, which means that at the end you need to take a decision, and people are afraid or not eager to commit for something because there is too much that might be relevant. But at some point the way that all this information is provided disables decision making or action taking. But what I understand there is that perhaps we should put a little more effort in building the teams, and then it is the teams that will decide, or it will be a collective effort, which means that it will not be a pack of Steppenwolves that will be going after certain calls, but there will be a team of people, and there they might find also other opportunities. So it's not only that they will invest time and effort for a single proposal, in case it fails, it's they have lost. So it might be, but do you see from your side? So another question is, what we now experience, that the call texts provide too much information. So it's not uncommon. Sometimes they have also 2 or 3 pages, while in the past it may have been only the scope and the challenge, which may have been a few paragraphs. So the thing is that, is this something that your personal opinion, of course, this is something that we can share with the members of the panel and with the participants. Do you think that this is a good idea to provide so much elaborate information, while in the past someone might have provided a very laconic outline of what the call topic may be? So now it's something like it's a call for tender, actually, because they prescribe what they expect. So what is your feeling there, a personal judgment?
I think this has got to be something this is something that's come about as a result of this kind of having a mission orientated program, and it's now very descriptive as to what they want. And as you said, it is a bit like a tender process. You have to hit these buttons, so yes, they are much more prescriptive than they were before. like just in terms of, you know, your question as well, you know, I suppose from my perspective, when someone is looking at topics, I'm always happy as an NCP to have discussions about with them about whether what they're proposing is a good fit for a topic, and sometimes just navigating them through what it is that's in that topic that they should be looking out for, and then helping them to look at also at the bigger picture that leads into that topic. So that's what we're doing with our researchers at the moment, is like where they express an interest, you know. So from the point you kind of look at the program and you kind of go, I'm interested in that, but I'm not sure I fit the bill. We then work with them individually, one-on-one, and kind of go, okay, what are you proposing, and try and tease it out, and sometimes work with them as to sometimes identify what is missing in terms of a partner as well. And we may, in some occasions, kind of review projects with them. And, you know, sometimes when you're too close to something, you don't see what you're missing. So we work quite hands-on with our researchers and our community where we can. I mean, it's sometimes we don't have enough resources to do that, but so we just try to provide that extra layer of service where we're navigating them through the documents, so they're not at sea in trying to find what they're looking for as well.
Okay, I think that it's also a good political answer, because you didn't. Yeah. But the thing what actually made me feel frustrated was before 10 days it was. So no, it was mid-June that I heard, because of this tendency that the texts become bigger and bigger, that now people try to develop some practices, some methodologies, so that they take as input the cold text of 2-3 pages and try to come up with a mapping which part should be part of the deliverables, of the expected impacts, which means that at the end it might be like we built some AI system so that we give as input the cold text, which is 2 or 3 pages, and try to see there which parts of this cold text can be reflected in deliverables, or in work packages, or in impacts, or in objectives. And I'm aware that there were some similar attempts that we all tried to deal with in the past, but now it seems like that we may be one step before having someone implementing this as a system there. And I have been also seeing there that there are also some science funding services which try, so that, for instance, I provide my profile, my Google Scholar profile or my LinkedIn profile, so that they might see there which might be the most relevant calls according or based on my profile, which means that it might be at the end that we humans created a problem, and now we will expect AI to help us about something that it's not necessarily rocket science. It's about simply fundraising. But apart from Martha, I would welcome everyone in the members of the panels to provide their views, their opinions, and also to disagree with us. And I have seen we have in the questions, Sila made a comment that, Sila, you wrote that you would need a little time to digest this information. And yes, this is actually what we are all struggling to do. And this is what we said before, that all of you should feel comfortable to contact us at any time. So not necessarily today, but anytime in the next weeks or even months. So on this, feel anytime comfortable to approach us, write to us, and contact us. I think that if there is no other question or comment, I will introduce the next speaker. It's Dr. Baha Kuban from Demir Energy, and Baha is a senior expert in clean energy technologies, in urban climate change and policy. And Baha obtained his PhD from Louisiana State University in engineering science, and has also a master's degree from University of British Columbia in material science. and has worked in the glass industry in Turkey as research engineer and business development manager. And in 2007, you started Baha working for Ecofis as a senior consultant in the areas of clean energy technologies, climate change strategy and policy. And now you are also working in solar electricity, sustainable cities, eco-innovation, climate change, politics as managing partner with the Mir Energy, which is an example case of a Turkish partner who succeeded in Horizon 2020. And you have several projects, FP projects on smart cities, urban renaturing, urban food transitions, and rural development. So the floor is yours, Baha, to share your experiences.
Thank you, Diamantis. I will start sharing my screen if I am allowed to.
Yes, please.
And in the meantime, of course, I will. I can't pass your comment on the Turkish pastry shop, Diamantis.
Okay.
I'll just say that yes, indeed, it looks like an overload. But I remind you of one thing. If you hang around enough in the Turkish pastry shop, it's most likely that the owner will hand you out a baklava, you know, as a he will just hand you to go away. But I don't know anybody who's been given a comforting project hanging out long enough in the European meetings. So that may be a fundamental difference between the pastry shop. But that was a good one. Good one. Thank you very much. And Diamantis, Marta, thank you very much for the very informative talks and a lot of information, as Diamantis has said. I will talk about well-based. This is a project from the 8th Framework Program on energy poverty versus health and well-being in the urban context. This is quite a serious problem in the EU. As you probably know, poverty is a complex phenomenon that is composed of many different types of poverty. It could be income poverty, it could be social exclusion, it could be severe material deprivation, and energy poverty is just one of those things. And it's really quite a serious problem also in Europe. Still, in the arguably most richest multinational bloc in the world, you still have almost 1 in 4 affected by one or another sort of poverty, income, energy, or severe deprivation of material deprivation, for example. So it is an important problem in Europe at the moment. And of course, the governments and the European Commission has seen this as such. And there's a lot of programs, a lot of programs in the European Union have some measures or some parts that are dedicated to this problem. Just a couple of them I can talk about is the Clean Energy for All package. There's the Just Transition mechanism, and then there's the communication and annex on Strong Social Europe. There's the Just Transitions packages, and on top of that all, of course, there's the post-COVID reconstruction program that combines with the Green Deal, of course, with a lot of money spent on eradicating poverty in all its forms in the European Union. Now, well-based is basically on energy poverty, and the Mir Energy is just one of the partners in Turkey. The Turkish cluster is actually clustered around the municipality of Edirne, which is a city on the westernmost part of the Turkish European landmass. And the third partner is the Zero Discrimination Association, which is a very important organization in general on especially the Roma people and socially vulnerable groups, etc. So I will talk about basically the well-based project. I will tell you a little bit about the project overall, but of course I will give you more information on the Turkish pilot, which is I think probably more interesting, especially from our point of view. Well, as I said, is on energy poverty. and it is on developing municipal action and policy towards the lessening of this area in the cities, which are about 6 pilots in 6 countries. We had 7 at the beginning, but we had one of them pulling out from Ukraine. At the moment, we have Spain, Italy, Turkey, Hungary, Britain, and Netherlands at the moment, and we have a total of 19 partners from these clusters and from these pilots, and also, of course, core partners for the horizontal work in the project. There's a whole deal of very different partners coming from different parts of life. There are research centers and universities as the scientific partners, but also SMEs and, of course, public administrations of the cities, and national and international networks, NGOs, etc. Sorry. Let's go ahead. The basic flow of the project, as I said, it's a complex problem, the energy poverty problem, and it needs a multidimensional approach and solutions, and each city will have its unique solution. But the approach is basically tackle the social determinants of health and well-being, and look at it at an individual level first, and then at a community level, and then at the city level, with urban policies that are directly addressing health problems through their policies via physical and other measures that they will implement in the project. And as you well know, social determinants, poverty has a lot of repercussions and outputs in the outcomes in the health area, with some really serious problems, respiratory diseases, heart attacks, stroke, and mental orders, but also intra-generational problems that go from one generation to the other due to the schooling and education of children living under these conditions. The main objective, of course, is to design, implement, and evaluate a comprehensive program that reduces energy poverty and has a direct effect on health and well-being. And we would like to build this on an evidence-based approach from the pilots, and then make it adaptable and transferable to different European settings. I tried to count the pilots just a minute ago, but it's basically 6 cities: Valencia, Herlen, Edirne, Jelgava, Leeds, and Obuda. And the main objective can be detailed in specific objectives and also categorized, for example, by design and implementation objectives. This means the design of a comprehensive urban program to reduce energy poverty, with its unique application in each city, and then implement this urban planning program in the cities during the project, and then start an analysis and evaluation work packet in the program, in the project, and make the short and midterm effects truly scientific and reproducible, so you have an evidence-based pool that you can then disseminate and advance on different cities. And of course, one of the important things is to look at the different stratifications of this, the results through social and gender determinants regarding health and well-being. And one of the specific objectives, of course, will be to scale up to public policies that are adaptable and usable in different settings in Europe. Policy recommendations are key, and again, the cities will have their own, but they will come together to look at the possible sharing the results with different European cities through a multitude of networks and associations that the project will establish. Another specific objective is to develop the tools, which is one of them is the systematic data collection framework, and the other one is a platform which can then use to be as an inventory that all cities and all practitioners in this area can use. One of the other important objectives, of course, is to look at this as a sustainability issue in the long term after the project has ended, and look at the possibility of generating income, especially new business models for local SMEs in any way possible. And the other one, of course, is the very much announced well-based manifesto, which will result in a rollout campaign for cities that are not part of the well-based network, but will be established as partners throughout the project timeline. Okay, so basically the workflow is for 48 months through 7 work packets, and I try to summarize the different phases to you in the design, implementation, and evaluation. The first 3 phases, of course, that will actually form the basis of all the rest of the data collection. And then the new business models and alternative ways of financing the urban health interventions, of course, will be one of the key aspects of the work in the project. This is just an expansion on the workflow, and all the cities will go through this. Of course, health and well-being has, for example, different from other technical or only technical implementations. It has a personal aspect to it, which needs a lot of co-creation and things that you have to do to attract these people into the project. So the part of the project before the implementation will actually consist of how to attract these groups of citizens into this project to gather information over them. This needs to is one of the more important parts and barriers in the project. As I come to the challenges, the review of evidence and the literature at the moment, there's a lot of definitions of poverty, as I said in the opening sentences. It's composed of many different parts, and energy poverty also has different definitions from country to country, but the European Union is trying to, it has a very strong organization to this end, is the European Observatory of Energy Poverty. So this is very helpful for us also. And from that, we will, of course, develop an urban program and try to look at this adaptation basically through the evidence-based aspects of social determinants of health and well-being. The pilots, of course, will have different types of strategies of implementation, and also different recruitment strategies, as I mentioned. But basically, the interventions will consist of 125 people and as an intervention, and 125 people as a control group. These will, of course, be separated into different units depending on the number of people living in the houses. And it will be different numbers in each country, obviously, and depending on the types of groups that will be participating. But basically, we will have physical interventions in the homes to measure the basic elements of health and well-being, and we will also have the interventions in the homes that will make their let's say the physical situations, the comfort situations, the energy situation more acceptable to the habitants, so that we can first look at the baseline, and then at the end of the project, after all the interventions have happened, we can look at what we have achieved in terms of health and well-being. This is no mean task, because a lot of the determinants of health and well-being, of course, are probably not observable in project lifetime, but we will be able to at least do some predictive. We have a lot of competences in the project through the partners and in each cluster in the countries to be able to look at this in a scientific way. Look at the rest of the challenges. We have a lot of, as I said, city unique information collection methodologies. There will be questionnaires, of course, even like more technological gadgets that will look at the real-time data of health, like, for example, watches that we will be using in a lot of the cities. But around about 6 months after the project starts, we will be looking at the baselines for data gathering. And of course, there will be, as I said before, a digital infrastructure to support the cities and also the project itself. I will talk about the Edirne pilot a little bit more, as this concerns us much more than obviously the others, because we will have our pilot here and look at the social determinants of health and well-being in Edirne. Edirne, as I said, is sort of westernmost city, large city in the Thracian Turkey. It has a population about 180,000. According to the 2020 census, and the local consortium, as I said before, is consisting of the municipality itself, the Immunotherapies, and the Zero Discrimination Association. Now, in Edirne, there are 8 neighborhoods where the Roma population are overwhelmingly located. You can see the numbers on the right-hand side of that map there, and some more information about them. As I said, they're fundamentally Roma inhabited with other groups, of course, as well. Their estimated population in the city of 180,000 is about 25,000. So that's an over 10% population, which is quite significant. This is a picture of what the municipality has already been doing with these neighborhoods. You can see that they're fairly ramshackle homes in different neighborhoods, and you have a basic upkeeping with them. They have a much better structure after the municipality has intervened with a much better energy infrastructure as well. But looking at these neighborhoods, you can see that these are also stratified into at least 3. Of these 3, the first 2 that has about maybe 20 up to 20,000 people is medium to good conditions. The habitations are not too bad, and the people have on and off jobs if they are precarious jobs. But the one in the last group is the worst group. These are really abject poverty, very poor health. Indicators are bad, social problems exist, and the municipality and the zero tolerance association, discrimination association, sorry, I said it wrong twice. The Zero Discrimination Association have worked in these neighborhoods for many projects, as I will show in a minute. So most probably our interventions in well-based will take place in this category. And what we would like to do is physical renovation, as the municipality has been doing before, including 125 people. As I said, the number of people in each house will be different. So this will probably consist of 10 to 15, maybe 20 homes. Of course, they will be part of the project with their full consent and participation. The retrofits will be used perhaps using recycled building materials and things like that, if we can. Households that are identified for control, of course, will be matched with the ones that will be actually intervened on, and these will be kept for comparisons and the initial baselines, of course. We will have health and well-being baselines, as well as energy audits in their homes, as you can guess, and a lot of monitoring equipment will be as well as other techniques. But the thing is, of course, to somehow, of course, arm these people with an energy consciousness, the energy use consciousness at least, and perhaps result in some behavioral change, of course, in use of energy apparatus or energy consuming appliances in their homes. So we have 125 inhabitants that will be part of the project, same number in the control group. We will try to have as much of a scale here in terms of different ages, genders, and other determinants of social economic conditions. And the recruiting will be based on incentives, economic incentives at the beginning, probably by lowering bills and better health, let's say better conditions for the children to work on their homework. So these are all incentives that will be used. But as we know, as I said before, the municipality and the association have worked on these municipalities in several projects. So we know a lot of the stakeholders in these neighborhoods. But apart from that, of course, as I said before, we will work from the individual basis up towards the community and the city levels. So we will have actors directly involved in the project in the local neighborhoods, but going to the community and the city, we will have a lot of professional organizations, doctors' organization associations, for example, that will be directly involved, and the heads of these administrative units in the neighborhoods that we call muhtars, and of course all the way to the mayor, and we will have them strongly engaged in the project. The municipality, as I said before, has worked in these areas several times in European projects. One of them is the Romacted project that involves the Balkan countries, and the municipality was applicant for the DOSTA Prize 2 years ago, and also in their strategic planning documents, the municipality has already plans to actually renovate these, help these neighborhoods. That's just some pictures from the Romacted project. Basically, what we want to do, of course, is to design and implement the interventions and put in place our monitoring, and then look at the impact. We will look not only at energy performance and the effect of our renovations in the houses, but we will be looking at the individual people in those homes that will be in age, gender, and other groups. So we will be following their health and well-being indicators. And then we will go one stage up to community health and well-being indicators, and of course try to tie these all up in a comprehensive urban plan that will best serve the interests of reducing urban energy poverty in the cities in Edirne. Okay, that's all I have to say, and let me stop sharing and see if we have any questions.
Yes, thank you, Baha. And there is one question there. Beryl asks you if there is a standardized urban health program that is really possible for a diverse kind of sociocultural and economic contexts and different geographies.
Well, not really, because all cities and cultures have different ways of approaching poverty. Even the definitions differ from country to country, so we don't have any standard approaches. But as I said at the beginning, this is a serious problem in the EU, and it's being handled in a way that is trying to standardize this process. But I believe that at the end, the national decision makers will be probably the key, because they will have to find the unique solutions in their own countries, depending on their different attributes of poverty.
But Beryl, I think that it might be a very nice opportunity if you would come back to Baha with some ideas you may have. So this is the idea there, that we have some ideas on our own and we share them with others. We work together, we co-shape them, and then we have something that is result not of a single person, but of teams of people, be them from the same country or from different countries all over Europe. So I would be very happy if you will, in the future, Beryl or Baha, have a success story to mention out of this question that you have shared now with us. Kemal, could we share the slide of questions with the people so that now that we have completed the training, they might share with us some information about their individual backgrounds and some information that would be worth not for the event as such, but it will be worth for data analytics from the side of TÜBİTAK in the Horizon Europe, but also in general.
Yes, let me open the slide of questions.
Yeah. And then I think that we should not make people feel afraid, because actually we are approaching the end of today's event. So we already had discussions, which was a very good thing that we had. So the first question is, how familiar do you consider yourselves with the area of Cluster 1 health? And here you can answer very familiar, not very familiar, familiar or not at all. So we can give some time there so that you participate in the poll. I think that the more of you will answer the poll, the better quality of the results. So now we see it's only 100% that's for not very familiar. So we would like to have some more people answering these questions. Kemal, you will be able to keep all questions open so that people might answer, or it will be only while you are presenting them that they will be able to respond.
To chair, these questions will be active during this day, then they are able to respond during this day.
Okay, but it's good if you will do it here and now so that we could dynamically the results. The second question is whether you see improvements in the new Cluster 1 work program with respect to what we had in the past for Horizon 2020. And again, please, this is very important information. So I know that it might be something that you might not see much value of it, but these are actually the only ways that we can receive feedback and from you, but also provide feedback to TÜBİTAK, to the European Commission. So it is multi-purpose, the value of this information. So please take the burden and help us collect this information. And then the next question, please. Whether you feel comfortable with the new proposal templates. So again, here, feel free to express your views, whether you like them, whether they seem okay, or whether they seem unnecessarily complicated. Okay. The next one. So whether you see special or competitive advantages for Turkey's participation in Chapter 1 regarding health. So here we have 3 options, 4 options. It's a pity that we couldn't have an open-ended option there so that you might provide some justification that might be not any of these. And then please, the next one. Will you plan to lead or only take part in a proposal? Again, here we know that it might need more time to answer this, but even an emotional response might still be useful here. I'm not sure yet is a very good answer. And then is there a last question, or this was the last question, Kemal? How many resources do you plan to invest for your participation and preparation of a proposal? Again, this is a very practical information. It might help TÜBİTAK and other actors to devise better, more appropriate, more suitable strategies. So it's all worth to be answered. So how you best see to approach the need for resources. And I think this was the last question. Yeah, Kemal? There is still one. Okay. For your future proposals, do you plan to build on some previously submitted proposal or start from a zero base? Again, this is very specific questions, so nothing open-ended there, whether you will start from scratch or reuse the previously submitted proposal. So now, Kemal, perhaps you might send a one-line email to all so that we might receive answers to this Slido poll within the day. And as I said, it's very important information, and it's useful to have this. So I think that we have come to the end of today's training event. I'm very happy about the discussions we had, even though they were not live, and about the questions that you made. Again, I will remind you, please feel comfortable to come back to us anytime with questions. And I wish you the best. I thank once again the members of the panel and TÜBİTAK representatives and the team of Turkey in Horizon 2020, Tuğçe, Kemal, all of you. And I wish to all of us the best of success and good luck in our proposals for Horizon Europe. So many thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for everything. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.